Shoot. I wonder if I can edit. Okay, well, let me work on getting these people into their breakout rooms here. If I can edit. Okay, well, let me work on getting these people into rooms, right? Okay, I think I got that one up. So, all right, start moving people. Assign to.
Yeah, it won't let me.
Do you know how to use the *9 key to raise your hand in order to be recognized?
Yeah, well, I mean, the directions had it. I haven't tried it yet. Do you want me to hit it?
Yeah, try it.
Okay.
I can see your hand go.
The host will be informed that you would like to speak.
It works. Okay, now we have a very
Right. Yeah.
Huh?
Oops.
Join.
Forward this to you. It's the
Jan, I'm gonna move you to room 6.
Me?
Yep, you're gonna be in room 6. You
Okay.
might not have anybody there for a few minutes, but just I'm moving you over.
Okay.
They're coming in fast and furious though, so.
Down here.
Hi.
Yeah, they're putting everybody in these rooms so that you can, I don't know, whatever. It's fine.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, well, go ahead. I think I'm in here for both of us. They put us in these like breakout rooms because they have to verify our membership and stuff.
Well, then I won't. I'll just get out of
But
this.
if you want to vote, if we want to vote separately,
Whose voice am I hearing?
so let me just see what she has to say.
I'm not sure.
Stacy and Andy. It's a box about midway down.
Okay. Cassandra, could you check to see if we're on countrysideucc.org/annual meeting? Just verify it's up there.
Oh,
Not yet. I don't see it yet.
They'll break us out. They'll break us out too.
Since I will very well have to ask some questions as I'm taking minutes, it probably needs to be my sound that's on.
No, join.
How can I turn this sound off?
There's sound, no. There's sound buttons right up here. Right here.
If you
This one
are
looks
on
like
a-
it should be loud, but it's not.
Just turn it off.
If you're on your computer, you can mute yourself by clicking the mute button that will typically be towards the bottom of your screen, depending
So,
if what you
Aubrey, I'm
have-
going to move you over to the room now. You're going to be in room 8, a 7.
Okay. 7? Doesn't matter. Whatever you,
Well, now I'm lost to 7.
whichever one you want to move it to is fine.
Dan, I'm going to jump into room 5. Robin's got a question about renaming phone folks.
Okay.
There must be an issue. I'll be right back.
Janice 7. Who do I have in 6?
I don't know how the hell they get up.
Janice 6. Oh, everybody's in. You're going to 7, Aubrey.
Fair enough.
Aubrey, let me get to you. Aubrey. Tell them I apologize for putting people in there without moving you a host to it.
Fair enough. I'll explain it was your fault. Don't know.
Mute. Is that mute? I can't see. There it is.
Yeah. You can get in closer, for sure. I can make it bigger if you're ready.
Do what you want.
No, don't tip it. Well, it has to be tipped if you're gonna see. I can't see it anyway. Well, you gotta move over here. You act like that's gonna make a lot of difference. Well, wait, I gotta move my foot.
Okay, Cassandra, I'm back.
Yep.
You make me co-host.
Coming right now.
I can't rename the telephone people without being a co-host.
Oh, sorry, that was my
That's
bad. I
okay.
didn't.
Oh, well, let me make you a co-host. Dan, can you make her a co-host?
I made her co-host. Sorry, my bad.
I'm co-host now.
Yep, you're a co-host
Okay.
now, and I'll sign you back to your room.
It's room number 5.
Yep, got it.
Thank you.
Did we get on to the?
Let me refresh. Not yet.
So it's not, but it'll come up. It'll get there.
Yeah, I'll keep
All
refreshing.
right, so now I got to get back to all these participants. All right, so let's do Mit, Okay, now I can start assign to 1.
You want me to admit folks in?
Yeah, if you can admit folks in, I'll sign them. Oh, shoot.
Murphy.
Don't know what you're asking. Your controls are way at the top of the screen. No, no, just touch, just touch.
I don't have a sound for that.
Not yet.
You told us all the way off.
No.
iPhone Tracy. Where is
Tracy
that?
Halverson,
Oh,
I think.
yeah. We're
My G-spot got us muted anyway.
Wow, we filled a lot of these rooms.
You don't have to go to breakout rooms, do
So we got some of these people that are not joined. Steve Gomez, please join your room. Vicky, please join your room. Okay, Amy Blanchard. Please join your room. Stacy, have I made you a,
Not yet. I figure you can take care of that when you get everybody into their rooms. That's fine.
okay, but I'm just, there you are. I can't even find you. Make co-host. Yes. Bernhardt, do you see a join room on your thing? Do you see something that says join room? You're on mute, so I can't tell.
Yeah, thank you. I can't see anything that says there's a breakout room icon at the bottom on the task view.
But doesn't say join?
Nope. No. I didn't get that.
Okay, let me try to, I'm trying to find your name. Okay, we've got a few more people than I think should be in this group. That's why I'm trying to.
Dan,
Yes.
this is Diane. I did have a thing that said go to your breakout room, but I thought I had heard you say that you had done an oops, so I X'd out of it. You want to put me back into a breakout room?
Yeah, I'll move you to one here.
Okay.
We'll put you.
I think it was 4 or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to assign you just to another one now.
Okay, whatever. Okay.
All right. Okay. Oh, unassigned. Okay, so let me assign some more people here. 2, Minister Bannister, 3, Mark Sturzma, 4, Victoria, 4, 7, Stacy Carnazzo, Ruin, and Brenda Sturzma assigned to room 2. Okay.
Got one that says room 6. Bernhardt's.
Okay, join it.
Okay, thank you.
Galusha's, I think, are fine, so we don't have to move them. Mary Johnston.
Welcome, David.
Hey there, Dan. Let me see if I can get my wife runs or is involved in the Do Right Right Now campaign on COVID, and I've got her background up. So let me see if I can get that switched off.
Okay, let's see here. Ryan.
You should know it says David Kramer.
I have to change it every time. It drives me nuts. Let's see.
Jennifer Vinton. did you get a group to join?
I did, and then my internet went out, so I had to go back in again.
Okay.
I was in Rebecca's group.
Whatever room was that? 4? Yep.
I have no
I'm sending
idea.
you back.
There we go. Thank you.
Dan, I think I was in 4 also,
Okay.
beginning.
Okay, Sherry, David Kramer, Amy Blanchard.
When is the meeting starting?
As soon as we get everybody into the rooms and get their names reassigned. So you've been moved into room 3. Can you join that room?
I guess.
I mean, you're assigned, your name's correct, so we're fine there. So, let's see here, Diane. Okay, I think we've got most people signed. Diane, you're fine. If you don't see that thing, just stay where you're at because we'll be pulling everybody back here soon. So. Okay, I think I'm going to send a note, or Cassandra, could you send a note to everyone and ask the breakout room leaders if they're, well, actually I can text them because I created a text.
Okay.
Oh, I probably should have that PowerPoint pulled up. Okay, who is the spotlights we were going to do? Is Russ is the spotlight? Who else was we're spotlighting? We're going to try to spotlight every speaker, so we'll have to figure that out as we go.
I believe David.
Okay, let's make him a spotlight.
Yes.
Okay, we've got 2 spotlights.
Hi, David.
Tracy, how are you?
Good, good.
I'm hopeful you won't need me to say anything.
As are we.
You're not the first person to say that about me.
Okay, so I'm
You're here for
checking.
moral support.
I've got 2 rooms that say they're done. Well, should be able to start here shortly. So, I've got 3 rooms.
Robin texted me that she's ready to.
Robin's ready?
Yeah.
Robin, Alex, Aubrey. Rebecca. Let me see, is it? Dennis will be starting here shortly. Let's see here, who else is? Derek. Haven't heard from Diane. That's the last person, Jan and Diane.
You don't mean me, Diane Hill?
No.
Oh, another Diane. Scott, maybe.
I see room,
Diane Poots.
room 6 has a couple of folks that don't have the proper naming yet.
Room 6. Room 6 is.
Rebecca?
Room 6 is Jan.
Jan.
She's still renaming them. Can take longer than you think it does.
Isn't that the truth?
Okay, so admit Sarah Long. Okay, so we got one last, see how's room 6 doing?
Room 6 is good. The Geigers don't have their last names on the screen, but we're gonna have to forgive them, I think.
I tried coming on my phone, but I don't see my name on it. So.
Okay. We know it's Jim Farrell, we know it's the Barnharts, and we know it's, so I'm gonna ask, we'll figure out how to, we'll change their name. Is that it?
Okay.
Is it Don? That's Don Geiger, right?
Yes.
Right.
Louis Geiger,
Okay, we'll change their name. We'll change Jim Farhouse.
Louise Geiger
And
got
what
on her
was the
phone
last one was
and she's named.
the Bernhardts. What is Bernhardt's first name?
Mary and Sally.
Okay. All right, we're bringing everybody into the main room. Are you ready?
We're ready.
Of course.
I have 30 seconds to come back. We're going to mute all.
Okay.
So welcome back as you come back. I'm going to share the screen. Okay, share.
Who's all here? Oh, hello.
And Cassandra, you're gonna unco-host the rest of us?
Yep, well. And then just one second, I'm sharing the screen so we get the welcome.
It actually doesn't let me unco-host.
I'll unco-host them. So welcome everyone. We're going to start with Stacy Carnazzo, or not Stacy Carnazzo, Stacy Warner, and she's going to give us a little introduction here.
All right, let me my notes back up. All right, welcome to the annual meeting. I'm just going to run through some of the Zoom protocols that we'll be using. Some of those you may have talked about briefly in your breakout room also, and we're just going to practice a couple of things. Some of the information that I'm going to go over after I finish talking, I will also post it in the chat so that you can see it, including some links to the documents on the church website for the annual meeting, including the agenda and the rules of order. The first thing that I wanted to share with everyone is we do have a phone number established if you are having some technical issues. The phone number is 402-250-3928, and I will post that in the chat as well. That is if you're having some specific Zoom technical issues and you need support with that. We will also be using the chat feature throughout the annual meeting, but only in a very specific way. The chat is only enabled for you to send messages to the host and co-host. The chat should only be used if you have questions about technology, maybe a question about the rules of order, navigating Zoom, logistics of the meeting, and those types of things. The chat is not going to be used for questions regarding the agenda items or for comment during the discussion portions of the agenda. I will talk about in a second how we will do that. I will be monitoring specifically items that come into the chat. So if you need to send a message through that, you'll click your chat feature, which is for most of us going to be in a toolbar at the bottom of your screen. And then that will open up the chat window and you can type in the chat. In the to box, you'll select the down arrow and select the name Stacy Warner. Type your message and then hit enter or send, and that message will show up for me and I will make sure that we get that to the appropriate person. I can also use the chat to send messages to all participants. So that's what I'll be doing here in a moment. I will send you a link to the agenda and a link to the rules of order and a link to the overall church website page with all of the annual meeting items in case you'd like to pull those up on your own and follow along. All participants are going to be muted. If you are called on to speak, then you can unmute your computer by using the mute button at the bottom of the left-hand bottom of your screen. If you are on a landline, you can press *6 to both mute and unmute. But again, we'll ask you not to unmute yourself until you have been recognized by the chair. To do that, we're going to be using the raise hand portion of Zoom. At the bottom of your screen, you will see the word reaction and a little smiley face. If you click on that button that says reactions, there is a picture of a hand and the words raise hand, and you'll be able to click on that. We're going to practice that in just a second. So you can click on that button and you'll be able to raise your hand. We will use that feature to make a motion when we're calling for a second to a motion, or during the public discussion portions. If you would like to speak, you can raise your hand and you will be recognized by the chair. To lower your hand, you're going to click on that same reaction button, and then the words lower hand will show up and you can click on that. If you're on a landline and you need to raise your hand, you will select *9. A raised hand will then appear next to your name in the participant list, and we will call on you. Russ will give your name and give you the floor to speak. To lower your hand on a landline, you'll click *9 again. Okay, so *9 will raise your hand and *9 will lower your hand. If you're raising your hand to make a motion, please leave it up until that motion is acknowledged by the chair so that we can capture that in the minutes. And then we will ask everyone to lower their hands and then call for the second. Do the same thing. When that person is recognized, we will ask you to lower your hands. And then during the discussion portion of an agenda item, if you would like to speak, raise your hand. And then when it is your turn to speak, the chair will recognize you. And at that point, you can unmute. And then according to the rules of order, you'll have 2 minutes to speak and then an additional 30 seconds for rebuttal if you desire that. So let's do a quick practice of raising your hand. If you want to take a second, find that toolbar at the bottom of your screen that says reaction, click on it, and then click the raise hand. I see lots of hands raising. Great. If you're on your telephone and you would like to practice doing the *6 9, you can go ahead and do that right now as well.
Is it just star 9? I'm sorry.
Or I'm sorry, yes, star nine to raise your hand.
Dan, I'm on your screen somehow.
I could not tell who that was. Dan, did you hear that?
That's Gordy.
Okay. A second for that. All right, so if you practiced raising your hand, let's go ahead and unraise it. So you're going to click back on that reaction button, and now it should say lower hand, and that will then take your hand away. If you forget to, on doing that, Dan, Cassandra, and I also do have the ability to go through and lower hands if we need to. All right. The next portion that I'm going to talk about that we will be using within Zoom, that the next feature is going to be the poll, and that is going to be for the voting feature. So with the poll, when we are ready to call a vote, then the poll will appear on your screen. It will have the question that you're answering and then an option to vote yes or no, and you will click on your yes or no button. It will automatically tally the votes if you are on your computer or a Zoom app on your phone or tablet. So you will select that. If you are on a landline, the voting is going to be slightly different. I believe you went over this in your breakout group in a little bit more detail. I'm just going to give you a couple brief reminders on that. So if you're on a landline, if you're voting yes, you will take no action. We have a count of the total number of individuals on a landline. So silence on a vote on a landline will be counted in the affirmative. And then if you are voting no, you will select star 9. That's going to raise your hand.
Stacy?
Yeah.
We did the opposite. I had the phone room and we did the opposite.
Oh.
If they're in favor of a motion, they will raise their hand. If they're not in favor of a motion, they will leave it down.
All right. Okay, so forget what I just said and remember what Robin just said. If you are voting yes, select star 9 to raise your hand for the yes. And then if you are voting no, you will not take any action. And then so that we make sure that you have a chance on the phone to register your vote, just prior to the vote ending will indicate, somebody will indicate that you've got a few seconds left to make that final vote before the vote is ended. And then we will take the results from the polling and then the results from the phone votes. Those will be combined for a final vote. Okay. So let's go ahead and do a test vote. Cassandra, if you could post a test poll, and we'll ask everybody to register a vote on the computer. And then same thing, if you were on a landline, register a vote according to those instructions. All right, we will keep this test vote open for about 10 more seconds. So if you're on your phone and you want to practice doing star 9 to raise your hand to show your vote, you can do so now. If you used the yes, no vote buttons in your reaction instead of the poll, sometimes those move away quickly. So please make sure that if you're on your computer and you see the poll question, make sure that you're selecting yes or no in the actual poll window. Dan, as you're counting, I'm not sure if you're still on the line right now, as you're counting on the participant list, you'll see that there's still some yes and no votes counted along with the raised hands. In addition to the poll. So we'll just want to be sure that we're capturing those and any votes as well in case some of those slip through. Dan, can you please remove the co-host from Derek? And I just lost the last name.
Yes, I'm working on trying to find.
Okay. Yeah, so if any room, we can go ahead and yes, end the poll. Sorry about that. If anyone was a breakout room lead and made a co-host, when you have that designation, you are not able to raise your hand or vote. So if you are still listed as a co-host and you are the lead of a breakout room, if you want to message Dan or I, and we'll make sure that we get that switched. All right, if you've raised your hand, you can go ahead and if you were on the phone and raised your hand, you can go ahead and unraise your hand now. And if you're on your phone to do that, I believe click *9 and that will lower your hand again. And Dan, we do have a rule of order question that was just posted to me in the chat, asking if there's an option for abstaining on a vote. On the poll, I believe an abstaining would be just not voting, but I don't know that there's an option on the poll to abstain.
All the other polls have an abstain button. This one just didn't.
All right. So that was a question for the actual voting polls. When those are posted, you will have an abstain option, and so those abstaining votes will be counted as well. All right. If you are on your screen and you are needing to rename yourself or wanting to add your last name and you are on the computer, if you find the picture, the box with your picture and name, and you hover towards the top of your picture, there will be a small box with 3 dots. And if you click those 3 dots, there will be a button that says rename. And if you click on that, you will be able to type in your full name if you would like to do that, if that didn't get renamed in your breakout room. All right, I believe we have gone through all of the Zoom protocols. I'm going to post that technical help phone number over in the chat. And we'll post a few other things now that we are ready to move into the meeting. So Dan, I am finished with that portion.
Okay, Cassandra will give that to you if you want to pull down the results. And you can, I'm going to stop sharing. You can play the video, the welcome video.
I'm gonna go ahead and hit record.
Cassandra, I don't have a sound.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me restart that real quick.
Dan, you still have me spotlighted. I don't know that I need to be.
Okay.
I don't need the spotlight on me.
That was great. That was great. Thank you, Cassandra. Welcome everyone to Countryside's annual meeting. This is going to be an abbreviated version, a little bit different than normal, obviously, because we can't all get together in the same room. And I apologize for that. I hope that that will happen soon. But I did want to call the meeting to order, and I wanted to get a constituting prayer from our bridge support minister, Reverend Dr. Norman Pavey. Norman? Norman, I don't know if you're on mute, but we'll need to bring you in.
There. Please join with me in prayer. Holy One, we come before you today seeking your guidance. This has been the most difficult year we have ever faced. We have not been able to worship in our usual way due to the coronavirus, and even this, our annual meeting, is being held over Zoom. We ask that we be led by your Spirit as we elect new officers, adopt a budget, and deal with other business. However, our most heartfelt prayer is that the world recover from this terrible virus, and that those who are infected be restored to health and to wholeness. May we, the members and friends of Countryside Community United Church of Christ, be agents of your healing love. We pray in the name of Christ Jesus, our Savior. Amen.
Thank you, Norm, and thanks for helping out in this time. Thank you very much. So we also would like to recognize David Kramer as our parliamentarian. David will try to keep me straight through this, through points of order and all kinds of stuff here, because it's a new format for us, and it's going to be a little difficult, but I'm sure David can help us through. In addition to that, we have Cassandra Weisenberger. She is the communications director at Temple Israel. She's helping us behind the scenes with the Zoom. We appreciate it. That's another gift of the Tri-Faith. Thank you, Cassandra. So that brings us to the moderator's report, and my moderator's report is out there for you to view. I'll just sum it up by saying, nothing new really happened this year. I don't really have anything to report. I wish that was the case. I wish it was just another humdrum year, but it has pushed us. It has pushed Dan and the staff and the moderators. It's pushed us to do some really neat things, honestly, some really great things, and work really hard to try to keep everybody connected. So take a look at that moderator's report, but I just want to give a very heartfelt thank you to Dan and the staff for really pulling things like this meeting together, which I never would have thought possible to do by Zoom a year ago, to keep us connected through text chains and calls, to get us on a platform like YouTube in a hurry, and to get us on TV. It's been wonderful. And then I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm always getting an email with a C10 report or a newsletter or an update from the TLC. So we've really tried to stay connected, and we've done a few informational meetings. So a lot of work by the staff to really pull that together. I appreciate everything they've done. And I think in the long run, it'll make us a better church for having these things available to us. It really can help. I know for my sake, I'm in Kansas City today, and I definitely couldn't be here leading a meeting in person. So it does open up some new avenues and some new ways for us to be together, even when we're not. So thank you to the staff and to all the volunteers on all the boards for putting up with a new format and really coming through. I really feel like we came together as a group, even when we were apart. So that's the moderator's report. Feel free to read the whole thing in general, but I'm going to turn it over to Tracy Halverson for her vice moderator's report. Tracy, we'll have to have you unmute as well.
Sorry,
There you go.
yep, there I am. Sorry about that. As you know, as the vice moderator, I am also charged with being the chair of personnel. And so my vice moderator's report will center around not just the progress in the leadership of the moderator team, but also in the business of the personnel committee this year. In the first quarter of this year, as you know, we had formed a search committee, and we're looking for someone who eventually was reformatted into a director of youth and family ministry. And that search team recommended to personnel to hire Rebecca Morello into that position as the first ever director of youth and family ministry at Countryside. And we were thrilled to bring that motion to council and have council overwhelmingly and unanimously accept that motion from personnel and hire Rebecca into that position. Rebecca is in the process of filling out both of her assistants in this ministry, and we look forward to all of that team working together in 2021. In March, the Personnel Committee approved the pandemic infectious disease policy that supported all of our Countryside employees that were impacted by quarantines and illness and closures. And in that, we also transitioned Diane Scott from coffee house manager to community engagement coordinator. During that period of time in March, as you're all well aware, Eric Elness contracted COVID, and that led to his decision to transition his ministry to his native Pacific Northwest in Portland. And so as personnel, we accepted his resignation September 1st, and his call with us ended December 1st. During that period of time where we were putting together a team to lead us through this interim and this transition, some churches use their moderator team, some churches use their personnel committee. We formed a subset of personnel called Transition Leadership Committee. And during that time, in working to put together the model for interim ministry and leadership, Chris Alexander indicated that her ministry was being called in another direction as well. And so her call with Countryside ended January 1st. And so we have had in this interim period of time, then leadership through the Transition Leadership Committee. So that would conclude the work of personnel in 2020. And although it was a challenging year for all of the obvious reasons, it's also been an exciting year to be involved in leadership, as Russ said. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also just want to point out Aubrey Fitzke has been the vice moderator elect and will become the vice moderator. And he's been a very great part of this team, just fabulous to work with. So thanks to the whole moderator team. It has been really an eye opener and really great for me. Thank you. Now I want to introduce a video to try to streamline, instead of having each board come up and talk through their report. We put together a video to go through those. I want to make sure that you know that you can find their actual reports in the annual report. But for now, we're going to play this video, and it kind of summarizes what's happened.
Executive Board Summary for Annual Meeting 2021. Board of Arts Ministries. Perhaps one of the most exciting things to happen at Countryside this year was the acquisition of the John Paul Buzard pipe organ, Opus 47, thanks to the kindness and generosity of Roy and Gloria Dinsdale. This is the first new pipe organ in Omaha in nearly 20 years and one of the best in the region. Through a marathon of mini concerts, the organ was safely introduced to the congregation live and in person. Two very special concerts, a Halloween concert, the first public performance of the new pipe organ, and Nasty Women, a celebration of the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage, featuring women composers that are in a lecture recital format. Board of Christian Education. The Board of Christian Education was able to continue its educational and inspiring program through Zoom, featuring Rabbi R.A. Azriel classes, Sermons for Life, a view of Jewish life and tradition, Bible studies in small groups formed to follow the worship series, racial justice book groups studied white fragility and how to be an anti-racist in order to inform and support Black Lives Matter. The Center for Faith Studies collaborated with the Sacred Activism community of Omaha to host a Zoom event featuring Andrew Harvey and Carolyn Baker on radical regeneration. Sunday School at Home kits and story videos of Sunday school lessons were created. Nativity sets were collected and displayed during Follow the Star on Christmas Eve. Board of Christian Outreach. The Board of Christian Outreach continued its service and funding towards projects and programs meeting human need in ways that align with Christ's example. The board supported youth emergency services, assisting youth experiencing homelessness and near homelessness by providing critically needed resources to support them in their desire to be self-sufficient through the Easter offering. The Christmas offering went to Together to prevent and end homelessness through strategic partnerships and collaborations. Together's resources were needed more than ever as people faced evictions and food insecurity. In addition to the monthly food pantry, community cupboard, other organizations were also assisted. Restoring Dignity, St. Andrew's UMC Sienna Francis Lunch Program, Abide, Lutheran Family Services, Pine Ridge Reservation Christmas Toy Drive, Blixt, and Child Saving Institute. Small service grants were given to Sanjaya's Kids, Partnership for Kids, Whispering Roots, and Fingerprints. Board of Deacons. The Board of Deacons continued to connect with church members even though many of their usual face-to-face tasks, such as communion, ushering, and the many, many other things that go into in-person church, did not happen because the church was not hosting in-person services. They sent personal letters to the new class of confirmands, welcoming them on becoming members of Countryside. They delivered groceries to those unable to get to the store. The deacons provided financial support for the purchase of books for a Countryside congregant attending theology school. They allocated memorial funds to purchase microphones for recording online concerts during COVID. They also participated in Follow the Star on Christmas Eve by placing candles in the sanctuary to allow for moments of calm while listening to the new organ. It was a place of meaningful prayer and an opportunity to be mindful. Board of Life Ministries. The Board of Life Ministries took advantage of a quiet year normally filled with all church events to reflect on the volunteer structure at Countryside and how to develop a system of assessing the time and talent of the church members, to store codes of interest in the church database so ministry leaders could pull reports of folks to call and recruit volunteers for events. They created Advent crafts that were distributed through the December Community Cupboard. Board of Pastoral Care. The Connect Callers Project organized 50 volunteer callers to stay in touch with every single Countryside member in March, April, and May 2020 to check on their physical and mental health. In addition, 13 new Stephen ministers were commissioned, 1 from the Tri-Faith Initiative, 2 from Temple Israel, and 10 from Countryside. Endurance stories and poems encouraged people to live and even thrive through difficult times. Pastoral care has been reinvented this year, and lessons have been learned, such as care is not exclusive to Christian traditions, and anxiety can be productive in coming up with ideas such as Connect Callers, using Zoom, and sharing church services on TV. The amazing people of Countryside have continued to provide encouragement and a deeper sense of community. Board of Trustees. The trustees were able to ensure the financial health of the church by closely monitoring member revenue and expenses. Member revenue was down, understandably, by just about 10%. The trustees secured a Paycheck Protection Program loan, which allowed the church to retain staff and supporting the independent contractors. The trustees also looked into the idea of socially responsible investing. Environmental, social, and governance investing is known as sustainable investing that seeks positive returns on society, the environment, and business performance. The virtual stewardship campaign was able to reach 90% of its goal, despite the fact that Countryside was unable to gather or continue with many of its programs. Board of Youth. Rebecca Morello is the new Director of Youth and Family Ministries. The Board of Youth is grateful for Angie Stanek and Morgan Lenigan for stepping up after Will Howell's departure. The Board of Youth continued to meet online and was able to host events such as an outdoor movie night in August. Weekly calls included discussion, online games, and cooking together. It was a heartbreaking year for youth who were unable to attend school, have confirmation, or graduations. Engagement with youth will continue to be a major focus for the upcoming year. The board was able to focus on some of its policies and procedures to set in place more formal processes for future programming and events. Nominating Committee. The slate of officers and new board members. Moderator, Tracy Halverson. Vice Moderator, Personnel, Aubrey Fitzke. Vice Moderator-elect, Diane Poots. Treasurer, Phil Johnson. Clerk, Bonnie Buckland. Boards. Board of Art and Ministry, Artie Stoltz, Adam Steinbeck. Board of Christian Education, Morgan Lenigan, Lee Georges, Abby Cartwright. Board of Christian Outreach, Jim Gilbert, Lori Schrum, Jen Vinton, Rich and Chris Sakava. Board of Deacons, Amber Bartling, Craig Bartling, Gordon Dickey, Lisa Fahlander, Kim Johnson, Norm Pavey, Leslie Summers Day. Board of Life Ministries, Anna Hardy, Caitlin Kirk, Sarah Miller, Sharon Royers, Joyce Gamble. Board of Pastoral Care, Jody Nichols, Annette Sterling. Board of Trustees, Amy Blanchard, Stacy Warner, Doug Dushan, Andy Wilson. Board of Youth, Brenda Sturzma, Jeremy Wadhams, Maureen Seymour Karpf, Malice Bonner.
So that's our way this year of doing board reports. I kind of liked it. It was very nice. Thank you for putting that together. So because voting's kind of a challenge this year, we were trying to utilize a tool called the consent agenda to move forward with some of the items that usually are not very controversial and are likely to be approved. Be assured that everyone will be given the opportunity to voice objections by raising your Zoom hand. But we have one consent agenda item for this meeting. If there are no objections, the minutes from last year's annual meeting, the board and leadership reports, and the nominating committee report, along with the slate of officers and board members, would be approved if this consent agenda is approved. So instead of doing 3 or 4 or 5 individual votes on these less controversial ones, we're going to try to do it with one. So I don't need everybody to raise their hand, but I need a motion on the floor to approve as it says on the screen here, to approve these items. And so I have a hand up from Mark Sturzma making that motion. Now, if all of you could put your hands back down, that would be great. Thank you, Mark. And then I need a second. So if someone could put their hand back up, it looks like Rick McInnes has, or Kathy, I don't know which, but McInnes's have seconded. So thank you. If we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. So now if there's any discussion, just raise your hand on the screen and I can acknowledge you and see if you have any objection to the motion. Okay, wow, none. That's great. Oh, there's France. France, I think we can, if you can unmute and tell us what you've got in mind. Maybe we can unmute her. Or maybe her hand's up by mistake. I don't know.
I can't unmute,
Okay.
force unmute, so we'll just lower the hand.
Okay. All right. So now we would want to put up the poll for that item. And again, you have three choices. You can approve, you can not approve, and you can abstain. And if you're on a phone, voting will be a vote for yes. I see some votes coming in over the participant code. This is our first official vote via Zoom. I don't know if it's monumental, but it's kind of exciting. And everyone, I do appreciate your patience. I know this is a little different, and a lot of you have had to come a long way, like I did, on technology. So try to be patient with it. Try to use the technology, and we'll try to bring you along and make sure that your vote counts. So I do appreciate everyone really pushing through it. And I think it'll make us all better at communicating this way with, with our friends, grandkids, parents. Hopefully we'll all be better at it. All right. I don't know how long do you guys think we need to hold it open? Do we have just another 15 seconds to make sure everybody votes? Okay. Unless have we had a chance to count all the?
Yeah, we're good.
Manual votes? We're good. Okay.
Post the poll.
Let's post the results of the poll. All right. Very good. Motion carries. So we've got our first one in the books. That's good. All right. Now, if everybody could put your hands back down, because we're going to be making another motion. I don't want to assume anyone has a motion that they don't want to make. So if we can put everybody's hand down. There we go. Perfect. So the next item on the agenda is we have some bylaw changes.
Russ,
Yeah.
this
Yes.
is David Kramer. I apologize for interrupting.
No, go ahead.
I think it's important for you to, and obviously the vote shows and the participant numbers show, but we do have a requirement for participation for a quorum, and you should just note that a quorum is present for the annual meeting.
Correct. Thank you, David. Yes, I show 154 participants. I know not all of those are voting members, Cassandra and so forth, and David. So, but we definitely have a quorum of over 75. Thank you, David. So as far as bylaw changes go, our first bylaw change, if we can put that up, Dan.
Okay.
Our first one deals with the historian, and in the past, the historian has always been an officer of the church. And what we've decided, or what we thought was maybe better than having an officer in that spot, would be to have more of a committee approach to the historian piece. And so we have a proposed bylaw change that's been approved by church council, but we need to approve it as a congregation. Let's see. So we're definitely trying not to diminish the role of the historian, but maybe it doesn't need to be an officer. With all of the attendance duties that an officer has and the obligations of an officer, we thought that maybe this would be a good change. So this is a change that would codify the prevailing practice of the historian, not actually serving as an officer of the church. Documenting the history of each year of the church is a very important part of the life of the church. A yearly historical report will be prepared for the annual report by a countryside staff member working with the committee. So I hope you've all had a chance to read this. It's also in the annual report. So I have a few hands up already. I'm thinking we'll get a motion on the floor first. So if someone could move to accept the bylaw change.
I move it, McAllister.
Okay, thank you, John. So it's been moved by John McAllister. And now if we could put those hands down, because we have to get a definite second. So the next one that shows up here, okay, I have Judy Varner at the top of my list as second. So it's been moved and seconded. Thank you. You can put those hands down now. That we make this change to the historian position. Any discussion now? So if you put up your hand, if there's discussion on it, I can recognize you. Okay. Oh, Jan, would you like to say something about it? Jan Brown?
Could you possibly, Russ, put the new wording back up? It was only up for a brief second.
Yep. Well, I can't, but Dan can. He's really good at that. So let's take just a minute to read it. One or more historians shall be appointed annually by the nominating committee to work with countryside staff to submit an annual report to the church. At the time of the annual meeting, the report shall summarize the history of the church for the past year, including but not limited to worship series, personnel changes, new members and confirmands, baccalaureate, special services and events, tri-faith activities, and any event of note. That's the gist of it. Thank you. Any other discussion before we vote? Okay, not seeing any hands. Let's go ahead and put up the poll. Thank you. So you can vote yes to approve the motion. You can vote no, or you can abstain, and then hit submit. And we will try to tally those up. I'm gonna just give us about a minute here to make sure everybody gets a chance to vote. And I wish I, had a joke or a dance or a song prepared to fill the time, but I'm not that kind of guy, I'm afraid.
Russ, this is Stacy. Just as a rule of order reminder on the voting, if you are on your computer and have the poll, please make sure that you're voting by using the poll, not by raising your hand to vote. The hand raising should only be used by those that are on the, ideally by those that are on a landline, just so that we can make sure that we have a full accurate record. If you see the poll, please actually select yes or no or abstain in the actual poll.
Very good. Yeah, it should pop up for those of us on Zoom in its own window, and we can click those circles. Okay, I think everybody should have had a chance to vote by now. So let's close the polling. Okay, and it looks like we have 99% voting to approve, 1% no, and 1% abstain. Thank you, everyone, for voting on that.
Russ,
Yes.
sorry, just one more thing. We do need to add in the 5 positive votes of the 5 individuals on the phone.
Okay. And since we only see a percentage here, Stacy, are we recording raw numbers as well somewhere?
Dan, I believe is that being recorded by Zoom, or are you recording that, or would you like me to start writing those down?
We are recording this, so we'll get that. But if Russ, if you want to just also say the numbers, and then the clerk can get it into the records.
Okay. So from a percentage standpoint on that one, it was 99% approve. We actually ended up with 101% somehow total. So that's maybe math isn't quite that good, but we had 99% approve, 1% not approving, and 1% abstaining for a total.
The other two were less than 1%.
Okay.
So I'm sorry to interrupt again. This is David. Do we have, is there any way that we currently know what the raw numbers are?
Yes.
Yes.
So Dave, Russ, don't read the percentage. Please read the numbers of votes.
Okay, I don't get that on my end.
Okay, I believe only those of us that are co-hosts, Dan, can see that.
Then I will start recording.
If you'll read them, that'd
So
be
it's
good.
130, just one moment, 143 positive, 1 negative, 1 abstain. And I'll from now on, I will read those out.
Okay. Thank you.
As a reminder, the votes to amend the bylaws require 2/3, and that 2/3 obviously carries. So.
Okay. All right. So let's have everybody put their hands back down because we're going to move on to a second bylaw change. So thank you for everyone for voting and for, again, putting up with our clunkiness here. We knew it was going to be a little tough, but I think we're getting through it. So thanks to everyone. The second bylaw change is regarding the representative to the Tri-Faith Board of Directors. The rules of governing the Tri-Faith Initiative provide for members from each of the Tri-Faith congregations to serve on the Tri-Faith Board of Directors. So this change in the bylaws provides a process for nominating Countryside's representatives to the Tri-Faith Board of Directors. The moderator shall forward 3 names to the nominating committee for each open Countryside position on the Tri-Faith Board. The nominating committee shall make the final selection from among those 3 names and issue an invitation to the nominee to serve on the Tri-Faith Board. The term of service is 3 years. The Tri-Faith's rules currently limit representatives to 2 terms. So this change was brought forward by the church council. In the past, we really, since we became a part of the Tri-Faith initiative, we didn't have a really good procedure for this. And so the moderators were basically nominating people. And we just didn't see that as being probably the right way to go. So, and I understand there's probably some discussion to be had on this, but I wanted to put it up as approved by church council first, and then we can have some discussions on it. So can you put up the change in wording, Dan, for a little bit? So we want to make sure if somebody makes a motion that they know what it is. So here's the wording. I won't read it to you.
That's the moderator section.
Yeah, go ahead.
And there's the committee section.
Okay, so we changed the bylaws in 2 places, one in the moderator's responsibilities and one in the nominating committee responsibilities. Okay, so if I could get a motion from the group, if someone could raise their hand to make the motion to accept the bylaw change. Okay, we have David and Leslie Day who have made the motion. I appreciate that. Now, if we could put those hands down and we'll try to get a second. Okay, it looks like Mike Bonner gave us a second. Thank you, everyone. So we have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? Deb McCollister, would you tell us your thoughts?
I was hoping that Trish would answer first, raise her hand first.
You're at the top of the list. If you want Trish to go, though, she can.
Trish, you want to talk?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I did raise my hand.
Okay, good.
I know it's hard to see sometimes on those things. So when I saw this proposed change, I was concerned that this change looked like it was a change in process from how we normally nominate board members or make appointments that are like this, where we funnel them through the nominating committee. It also didn't seem to respect our congregational-led governance versus a top-down approach. And so I went to do some research, and I learned that there was both confusion and misunderstanding about the language within the Tri-Faith Initiatives bylaws regarding the faith partner congregations board seats and how they are appointed. So just for the record, the Tri-Faith bylaws are not written with the intent to dictate or supersede the governance of the faith partners, which is why the memorandum of understanding between the Tri-Faith Initiative and the three faith communities states that each participant faith community has complete control over all aspects of its religious governance and other internal affairs. So with the help and guidance of Deb McCollister and Dan Loven-Crum and Bonnie Buckland, I'm proposing a bylaw change, or to rewrite the bylaw change and use a substitute language. And that the substitute language, the purpose of it would be to ensure that the appointment process for the countryside representatives on the Tri-Faith Board of Directors honors and aligns with the nominating and appointment process Countryside uses for its boards and other similar functions, ensures our governance oversight, which is congregationally led and not hierarchical in nature, and respects the intention of the Tri-Faith Initiative bylaws to reflect the autonomy, culture, governance, and the needs of the commons congregations, that's the faith partners, in harmony and with the best practices and policies of a nonprofit organization. So again, with the help of Deb and with the incredible guidance and advice from Dan and Bonnie Buckland, I have a proposed change to the amendment.
Okay.
Are you going to show that on the screen?
There it is.
So the
You want to please read that?
Would you like me to read that, or would you prefer that Russ reads that?
It's your proposal. I'd have you.
Okay, I'm happy to. As the Christian partner, as the Christian partner of the Tri-Faith Initiative. Sorry, I have to move some things around. Let's see. The appointment of countryside representatives to fill vacancies on the Tri-Faith Board of Directors is determined by the nominating committee. The nominating committee is responsible for identifying, designating, and forwarding the names of the newly appointed representatives to the moderator, who in turn is responsible for informing the Tri-Faith Initiative's executive director and board chair of the new appointment. So not only did I ask for Bonnie's help, but I did reach out to Wendy and also the board chair of the Tri-Faith to make sure that my understanding and research was accurate and would align and support the Tri-Faith as well as Countryside.
Okay. Thank you, Trish. Very well thought out. And I do think it does reflect very well. Any other discussion? I still show a hand from Deb and from Rick and Kathy. I don't know if you have anything to add, you can.
I heartily approve. I'll take my hand down.
The only thing that I would say is that the moderator in turn is
Rick, please be acknowledged by.
Oh, I thought he was. I thought he said.
I said that his hand was up. So Rick McInnes, please go ahead and you have 2 minutes to give us some advice.
Sure. The only thing I would say is that appointed representatives to the moderator, who in turn is responsible for informing the Tri-Faith Initiative's governance and nominating committee on the new appointments, because that's where it goes. It doesn't go through the executive director or the board chair.
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate that adjustment.
So just at the very end of this proposed amendment, instead of saying informing the Tri-Faith Initiative's executive director and board chair of the new appointments, what is your, Rick, what is your proposed language there? Say it one more time.
So, well, you
Oh,
took it
we
down,
lost
so I
it.
can't see it.
Well, I'm gonna try to edit it.
Oh,
good.
He'll put it up. We'll see if it works.
Just give me 1 second.
So not to be a fly in the ointment, but so first thing, I think we can assume that we had a motion and a second for the proposed amendment. This is an amendment of the whole. So this would replace what was previously distributed to everyone. To the extent that Rick wants to now amend the proposed amendment, Rick, you would need to move to make that change.
Right. So I move that we change the wording right where I think Dan was changing it. Stowe is responsible for informing the governance and nominating committee on the Tri-Faith Board of the new appointment.
You don't need of the new appointment.
Yeah, you could say Tri-Faith Initiatives, governance and nominating committee of the new appointments.
Is that correct?
Without the through. Yeah.
It's governance, but spelling wise.
All right. Can't type fast.
Yeah, and of the new appointments.
Well, it's already in the sentence.
No, he crossed it out.
Oh, okay.
Oh, got it.
So David, we have a motion to make a further amendment to the proposed change.
Correct.
We need a second on that one.
I second.
Okay, I've got one from Deb McAllister. Is our second?
No, that's, so you had Rick's motion.
Motion, Deb
And you
seconded.
had Deb's second. So now you would entertain discussion on this proposed change, then we would vote on just the amendment to the amendment.
Right.
Then we'll go back to the full discussion of the amendment.
Yep.
And
We're
then
a dream within a dream right now. Okay, so
Should say of the new appointment.
Yeah, Dan, you left off of the new appointments.
Okay, I'll get that.
So any further discussion of just the change stating governance and nominating committee? Any further discussion of just that change within the bigger picture? I see a hand up from Robert and Nancy Davis. I don't know if that's if they would like to say something, they can. If not, they can pull their hand down. I don't know.
I hope I'm not out of line with the parliamentarian, but my question is, shouldn't this appointment be approved by the full church at the annual meeting?
No. I don't know why.
Well, this is no different than any other appointment. And so by amending the bylaws, you would dictate how the appointment is approved. This proposed amendment says that it's the nominating committee who makes the determination, tells the moderator, and then the moderator communicates.
So it would correct me if I'm wrong here, it would eventually get approved in the annual meeting along with all the other slate of board members, et cetera, right? It would be part of that report that comes from nominating and would eventually, as part of that, get approved by the total congregation.
Okay, as long as that's the way. I just don't want something completely different that was, in contradiction to the rest of our procedure.
No, I think it would fall in just the same with all the other ones, and all the board appointments are approved at the annual meeting eventually.
Good. Okay.
All right. Any other discussion before on the change to the change? Okay, if not, we'll need to vote, and I don't know if we have a poll prepared for this, but we are voting now just on the change from Rick McInnes on changing the verbiage from, instead of the Tri-Faith Initiatives Executive Director and Board Chair, to informing the Tri-Faith Initiatives Governance and Nominating Committee of the new appointments. So that's what we're voting on right now, is this part of the change. And later on, we will be voting on the entire change to the bylaws. So if we could put up a poll. Oh, I'm sorry, Judy Varner, I didn't quite close discussion yet. Do you have another point to make? I just saw your hand up, sorry. And maybe it's up by mistake. Okay, I don't know if you can unmute. Judy.
No, I'm just moving
Oh,
the,
okay.
the change to the motion.
Okay,
Okay.
so let's, all of you can go ahead and remute if you were off mute to talk, and let's vote on this amendment to the motion to make this initial change. We should have some numbers coming in. We'll give another 30 seconds or so for everyone to figure out their vote. Then we'll close polling. Okay. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to vote. Dan, let's close the polling and make sure we get a tally.
So the tally is 133 to the yes, 2 to the no, and 1 abstain.
Okay, thank you for stating that. So now that change to the change is approved, we're going to move back to this statement as a whole, as a bylaw change. Any discussion, further discussion on this as a whole? John McAllister, I see your hand up. Do you have something that you want to
No,
add?
I was just going to move the amendment.
Okay. Nancy Bisak, anything from you as well? Okay. Hearing none, let's proceed to a vote. If we could put up a poll on this bylaw change.
You need a second.
Oh, we never got a second, did we? So it was moved by Trish Hoffman-Ahrens, and we have a second from Mary Wendell.
Oh.
Okay, so you can put those hands down. Thank you. We have a move and second. Now we can.
So Russ, I'm going to jump in here again. I just want to be clear. This amendment had already been moved and seconded.
Okay.
We had been in discussion. We've amended it. We're now back to it. We can treat probably Senator McAllister's as a calling the question on the amendment to the original amendment. So if everybody approves this, it will substitute out what was previously sent to everyone, and you're going to vote one more time after this on the actual amendment itself.
Okay. So this is to approve this change.
As an amendment.
As an amendment. Okay. Does everybody understand what they're voting on?
Cassandra just put up the same one.
Okay.
Just reinitialize it.
We'll give everybody a minute here. Okay, now it's back up. Give everybody just another 20 or 30 seconds here to vote on this change to what was approved by council. Okay, let's close the polling and take a tally. Dan, can you give us numbers?
128 to the positive, 1 no, 1 abstain.
Okay, thank you. So now, David, we move back to the bylaw change as a whole. Is that correct?
Correct. And so there's a question as to whether there's further discussion. And if there's none, looks like you've got discussion.
Yeah, let's go through. If your hand is up and you want to discuss, make sure it's up for the right reason here. So I'm going to call on Nancy. Do you have any discussion?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was on mute before.
That happens.
I was wondering if the people who are selected to serve on this are all going to start and end at the same time. It seems like it would be practical to stagger them.
I believe they are staggered. Is that correct, Nan?
Yes.
I believe they stagger a
Good.
year. Yes. So we have coverage and some continuity.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Good clarification though. Rick McInnes, do you have something else to add?
Oh, no, I was just going to help answer that question when
Okay.
Dan answered on the staggering. The representatives on the Tri-Faith Board are staggered every year so that they change in all the faith groups.
Okay, very good. All right, if I don't see any other discussion, so I think we can vote. And just to be clear here, David, we are voting on approving this amendment to the bylaws, this change to the bylaws as amended by previous motions to replace the language that's currently in the bylaws. And it would replace what was approved by church council with this language. Did I say all that right? I want to make sure we're voting on the right thing. I think so. Okay, so if David doesn't have any objections, let's put up a poll to vote on this bylaw change. I appreciate everyone's work to make this better. I do like it. So let's put that up.
I want to clarify one thing, Russ, and that is that this paragraph D does not replace the existing paragraph D. It's a new paragraph D. The current D becomes E, E becomes F, F becomes G, and G becomes H.
Right.
So just so that there's no confusion, because the current paragraph D does still need to stay there for other reasons.
Yep, it will just become paragraph E.
Correct.
And so on and so on. Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Yep.
So let's put up a poll.
Dan, sorry to interrupt, Russ. Dan, which poll would this one be?
Do number 9 again.
Okay.
Thanks, Cassandra.
Yeah.
Okay, votes are coming in. Give everybody 20 or 30 seconds here. Just not the same as looking out and counting hands, but it'll have to do this year. It will have to do. All right. Let's go ahead and close the polling. And there it is. You have raw numbers for us, Dan?
137 to the yes, 0 no, 1 abstain.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for getting through that one. Let's see here. we have a third bylaw change. This one is in regard to virtual meetings. Countryside's current bylaws require that all meetings of the church council and boards to be held at the church. The bylaws state that committee meetings should be held at the church. As we have discovered during the last year, meeting in person isn't always possible or appropriate. So this proposal would permit the council, boards, and committees to meet virtually, which would permit more efficient operation of the church, particularly in times like these. Our attorney has helped us craft this language. And so this change to the bylaws, we will need a motion for if someone wants to put a hand up. Thank you, Amy Urick. I hope I pronounced that right. And then do we have a second, please? Okay, Marcia Bloom. Okay. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. If anyone has discussion now, please raise your hand and I will acknowledge your discussion point. Okay, so let's, we have Mike Bonner. Go ahead, Mike.
I'm just wondering about the necessity of this bylaw change as opposed to just making a rule change to fit a certain condition like the current pandemic. As we're experiencing, virtual meetings are convenient, but also complicated and don't necessarily allow for the full process of meeting and all the benefits of being face to face. So I'm just worried about that being the kind of the standard going forward if we make a bylaw change.
Good point.
May I talk to this a moment, Russ? This is Bonnie Buckland.
Yes, Bonnie.
When this was discussed at the church council, it was pointed out that we are likely, once we're past the pandemic, we are not likely to do very many at all truly virtual meetings. However, this change does make it possible for folks who travel with their work. For example, I give you Russ Schertz, who is not here in Omaha today. It makes it possible for our board members who travel and so forth to participate in a normal meeting when work or other family emergencies or some such thing take them out of town. So that was actually the bigger consideration, and not whether we would have fully virtual meetings to any large extent at all once we're past the pandemic.
Good point. Trish, do you want to say?
Yeah, I just
something?
wanted to add that I think one of the things that's happened this year that's an interesting consideration, and I know I have people in my small group who do not live here in Omaha, but are members of the church. So not only for the travel, I just wanted to amend and support what Bonnie was saying and point out that in our new experience here, we may have members joining us virtually more frequently and frankly from around the nation and the globe. So I would hate for any of our bylaws to limit their participation in the governance of the church.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion before we vote? Derek and Amy Kerr?
Yeah, kind of along the latter lines. It's becoming a new normal for many younger people that they meet this way. And so we may have youth that go off to college. It's a way for them to stay engaged and as they go about the world. I'm all for face-to-face meetings. I work in both worlds right now. But I think the virtual is a fundamental piece going forward of how people just do business.
Yep. Okay. Jeremy and Emily Wadhams, any other thoughts?
Yes, I also would like to point out that today it is -7 degrees. And for some of our members who could not possibly come out in this weather, This allows them to be part of the meeting, whereas, and we always have our annual meeting in February. This is not the last time that's probably going to happen. So again, just more participation with the virtual option.
Okay, thank you. Ryan Palmer, I see you next as a hand up. You're acknowledged.
Hi, yeah, I just, I wanted to just speak to what everyone's been saying here is that it is convenient and it is really beneficial if I'm out of town that I could still tune in and I'm really grateful for that. And I think what Mike Bonner mentioned has some merit. We don't want to get into a slippery slope where this is the way we're having meetings when I think everyone would agree that if we can safely conduct a meeting in person, that would be the preference. And then you could always tie in with Zoom or with some teleconferencing capability to the live meeting. And then just, I'd like to add as a point of information that there's currently no state or county health directives or city ordinances that would prevent us from having this meeting in person with masks on at socially distanced procedures. And so that being the case, we're still having this completely virtual when there aren't any legal restrictions that would keep us from conducting some sort of safe meeting in person. And it's a slippery slope. And I think that the in-person meetings is really important. I don't want it to just be the norm that we have these as the only way. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mark Sturzma, some thoughts?
Yes, I'm comfortable with the language because it uses the word or. I know from my work experience that holding in-person meetings in conjunction with an online meeting can be very challenging. So I just want to manage expectations or ask a question. Is the expectation that we would hold in-person meetings and also allow members to join online, or are we just putting that as a placeholder, as a possibility as technology expands? Because I know right now it's very tricky to do both. Thanks.
Thank you. And I know that or was very important to council when we put it together, because we're going to find our way through it. I feel it's not up to me to give opinion, but I just wanted to echo kind of what was said in the church council. Mitzi Cardona.
Hi, is there a way you could put the wording back up again? Because in the same vein as what Randy and Mark have said, I think that somehow the wording needs to say that as much as possible, we will have an in-person meeting and include virtual and allow virtual participation. But I do also think it's important to note that we aren't necessarily going to go by state and local ordinances, because while they may be more lenient than what our church council has decided is safe. So I want to be careful about getting into any wording that would say that we will go by state and local ordinances, because as we all know, those haven't been very well thought out or applied.
Okay. Brenda Sturzma.
Yes, I mean, I think maybe the point that I've had in mind has already been shared. I agree that it's good to have that in-person meeting when possible. So if the intent is that, I just wanted to confirm that is the intent, that the intent is we will meet in person where possible, and that people who need to join us virtually have the option. And I realize, as my husband just said, that can be tricky, but I think that it's worth it to try to figure that out in order to keep that face-to-face interaction. It's just, as we all know, it's different. You'll have a different kind of conversation. There's a lot of value to that, I think. So I don't know how, it's tricky. The wording is always tricky, but I just want to confirm that that is the intent, that we would have face-to-face meetings with the option for people with a mobility issue or a childcare issue that day or they're away for work could still join us and participate when needed. So that's all I had. Thanks.
Jim Gilbert.
Yes, just to, kind of hammer on this, it's not easy to combine the two, the live meeting with the virtual meeting, and it's expensive. And my thought is, have we applied any funding to this, or have we thought out the technology? So that would be my question. A, is there funding for this? B, have we thought out the technology?
So Dan, I'm going to point that question at you real quick. I think some of our conference rooms are equipped for that kind of thing, but I couldn't speak to all of them. What are your thoughts?
Part of the foundation grant for this year did have money included to help retrofit the rooms to finish off the ability to add that capability. But they all are wired, and we have monitors in about half of them at the moment, but we have funding to help support that going forward.
Thank you, Dan. Ann Huxtable Skates.
Sorry about that. I was off of my own little world. The way in which this is written and worded is confusing because it says church council meetings may be held at the church by video conference or by telephone conference call. Should that not read church council meetings may be held at the church in person or by video conference or by telephone conference call? Because right now, the way it's written, it sounds like it's going to be held at the church by a video conference or by a telephone conference call.
I think that's why it says may instead of shall, because.
But the way in which it's written, it says it's showing that there's only two choices: video conference, telephone conference call. Look at it very carefully.
So if I could jump in here, since I drafted it,
And I'm sorry, can you, oh, it's David. Okay, sorry.
Oh, sorry, this is David Kramer.
Thanks, David.
There's a comma, we inserted a comma after church so that would create a series of options. So as opposed to at the church by video conference or telephone conference call, the comma would connote, in that instance, 3 options: at the church, by video conference, comma, or by telephone conference call. That's the way the intent of the drafting is, that it provide you with 3 options there.
I guess it's with my writing history that this is confusing.
Okay.
Because basically you're saying that it shall be held at the church by a video conference or by telephone conference call. I think different things need to be added where they may be held at the church in person or by video conference or telephone conference calls. I think that is much clearer as to this is confusing. Because you aren't giving the choice.
A 3-option list is the way I read it.
But you aren't giving the choice of
having
the meeting. You aren't giving us the choice of having the meeting in person. You're just saying it's going to be held at the church.
So just to be clear, the language to be held at the church has been there the whole time, and the application of that has always been in person, to the extent so that the meeting, the previous language was church council meetings shall be held at the church by telephone conference call. And so I don't think anybody thought that at the church meant that it wasn't in person. But those are clarifying words that you all are free to add if you think they're important.
Thank you.
All right, we have a lot of hands up here, so I'm going to try to move through them quickly. Diane Scott, your thoughts?
Yes, hello, everyone. I did want to say that I disagree, I think, with the idea that it's everyone's preference to meet in person. I have been doing multiple classes and meetings for the last year, all virtual. And I can tell you that my guess it would be that some of those would probably have a 100% vote that they would prefer to go forward virtual. Why? In one of my groups, I have someone from Florida and also 2 women from Western Nebraska that would never have been a part of Countryside's educational component without these virtual meetings. Also, I've been doing Phoenix affirmation classes for years, and many times weather would force us to have to cancel meetings. We have none of that. So when I see the word may, I don't see that as taking anything away from anyone or any format. We are actually being given options for other formats. And I would be one of those people as well that I read that as that we have 3 options: a church meeting, a video conference, or a telephone call.
Okay, thank you. And I forgot to mention this earlier. I'm sure it came up in the chat rooms, but we are, and I think it was said once, but we have 2 minutes each and 30 minutes if you come back for a rebuttal. So just keep that in mind as you pose your questions here. Diane Poots.
30 seconds.
30 seconds, yeah.
30 seconds, sorry. My bad.
Just
Diane
quickly,
Poots.
my comments basically echo what Diane Scott said. It does depend on the kind of meeting and what the participants would like to do. I think even more than that we should always be in person. Now, for an annual meeting, my preference would be in person because that's a time for all the church to be together when possible. But there's many board meetings, committee meetings, et cetera, that can work just as well on Zoom, depending on the number of participants and so forth. So just agreeing with what Diane Scott said. Completely.
Okay, thank you. Mike Bonner, you're at the top of my list now. I'm guessing this is a rebuttal. So you got 30 seconds. Sorry if I said 30 minutes
I'll
last
have to
time.
be brief. I just want to be clear that I support, because I'm talking from Chicago right now. I support this technology addition. However, I think we should look at the original reason for having this bylaw say meetings shall be held at church, and that we need to examine where this is going and what's the core intent. I believe there's a transparency issue and there's a community issue that needs to be addressed. Again, are we making a bylaw change when we don't really need one? I've been on a
Mike,
board
you
where
are
we-
at your 30 seconds, just as an FYI to Russ and Mike.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Mike. I think I understand what you're saying, though. Thanks for your input. Kathy Blomquist, you have anything to say? Maybe the hand's up or you're on mute. I'm not sure.
She's on television, on phone, so she has to do a *6.
*6 to unmute, Kathy. There you go.
Okay, sorry about that. I just wanted to comment on this because I don't know if I'm just an off-the-grid person or a fogey. I don't know which way you want to go with this, but I have an emergency cell phone, and I also have a computer that does not have video access. So basically, I'm on a couple of boards. I'm very involved in church, but I have not been able to be involved in church for almost a year now because I don't have the technology. And this kind of concerns me. What Brenda Stursma was saying, if the main thing is still going to be meeting in person, that's fine. But if this is the new direction the church is going, it concerns me if I can stay an active member of the church.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy. Al Cardona. I'm going to have to cut off discussion here in a little bit, I think, guys, because we're going to go too long. So try to keep it brief. Al?
Yeah, so just looking at the way it's written, would it be better to have an and/or there, because we're talking about possibly mixing formats, and the way it reads now, it's like you can either choose this, or this type conference or meeting. But with an and in there, it allows you to mix the different formats.
David, based on what how you wrote it, you see that as working with it?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to see where that and/or would be.
Yeah, so we're in that paragraph D under the first one, it says where it says or by telephone conference, you would add the word and in front of or. And then the same thing would happen again in the next paragraph under I and/or by telephone conference. And then I can't see, let me look at the paper copy of the third paragraph. You would do a similar thing in Article 11 and/or. So that would clarify that you could use a combination of them if you were so inclined. And that would be essentially an amendment to the way it's drafted that you would need to vote on, and then you'd go back to the discussion on this.
Okay. So if I guess, Al, if you feel very strongly that helps, we could entertain a motion. If not, we'll probably vote on it as is. Okay, let's move on to Mitzi Cardona.
I make a motion that we change the wording to read as follows. Church council meetings will be held in person or at the church whenever possible. In person at the church whenever possible. Church council meetings may also be held virtually when deemed necessary by the church council. Verified members will also be allowed to join virtually per the process as supported by the rules of order. And that would be duplicated in the board meetings, except substitute board meetings.
So we have a motion. I'd like to clarify what it is exactly, or we need to write it down and get it on screen here.
I'm going to put it up on the screen. She sent it to me. So just 1 second.
Okay.
Let me get out of this so that I can get to it. Just once. Where are we here? Okay, the alternate would be can you see that?
Mm-hmm. So part E would replace the proposed D.
Yeah, D would be replaced with E.
So let me read that. D currently says church council meetings may be held at the church by video conference or by telephone conference call. Such meetings shall be conducted in such a way that all members participating can see and or hear each other at the same time. And so what Mitzi has proposed is replacing that with church council meetings will be held in person at the church whenever possible. Church council meetings may also be held virtually when deemed necessary by the church council. Verified members will also be allowed to join virtually per the process as supported by rules of order, by the rules of order. Yes.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think, does it say the same thing twice in there for a portion of it?
Your mic is on.
All right. So let's see how we do this. We'll need a second on that motion.
I'll second it.
And I'm sorry, who was that?
I'm sorry, it was Ann.
Okay.
Russ, this is
Yeah.
Stacy, and this is for Dave as well. Just a quick question. Since there was, do we need to finish the discussion that people were wanting to provide before motioning for this new motion on the previous
I
language?
think, David, you can chime in, but I think we have to finish this topic before we can move back to that discussion. Is that right?
That is correct. We have an amendment on the floor to the previous discussion. This is a formal amendment. Everything else was just generally discussion. So we now have a proposed amendment. That amendment has been seconded. So we now would discuss this proposed amendment, which would substitute in for the language that was presented to you. The other thing I would note is I believe her amendment made the same change for the board meetings.
Yes.
And so that instead of church council meetings, it would say board meetings, the exact same. The rest of those, wherever church council says, would get replaced by board meetings, and that would be the next.
And also committees. We do the same thing for the committees.
Yeah.
And then one more question with that, again, regarding the rules of order, is people are giving public discussion on this new amendment. If they've spoken before, does this restart their 2-minute time frame? So they would not be speaking in a 30-second rebuttal?
Correct.
Okay.
Until we move back to that previous discussion.
Just want to keep time correctly.
Yep, thank you. All right, so we have an amendment to the bylaw change on a motion to amend it further, as shown in paragraph E there. Any discussion on that topic? At the top of my list, I have Brenda Stursma.
Hi, thank you. Real quickly, when I was chair of the Board of Arts and Music, I was told we had to hold meetings in church for transparency reasons. That was a requirement that so that anyone from the church who wanted to come and sit in on a meeting could do so. They couldn't vote, but they could even request to speak in the meeting. So I think that's part of the reason that shall be held at church language is there. So I want to make sure everyone understands that we're changing the intent there as well. Mike Bonner touched on that.
I will add though, Brenda, that we have had that happen through virtual meetings as well. We've made allowances for that.
Okay, so we just need to be sure that somewhere we state that these meetings aren't private meetings that anyone can request to attend.
I think that's in another section of the bylaws, but definitely in there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And
thank you.
And it may be worth clarifying. So I don't know whether the author of this proposed amendment, where it says verified members, I don't know if that would be limited to church council members or to board members, or it could be frankly read as broadly as verified members of the church, so that any member of the church would be able to participate under the language as proposed.
Yeah, and with that in mind, I wonder if we do want exactly the same language for committees that we want for, say, church council or a council, a board meeting. I don't know. Just something to think about.
So I feel like we need to clarify then. This language that we have on screen here is what the motion is currently, right,
Yes.
David? So
correct.
Yeah,
okay.
It's for council meetings and board meetings.
And so do we need to do we need to clarify that this same type of language would go down into boards and committees? If approved, this change would go down into those other ones as well.
That was her motion.
Was
She
that
did
it go
make that
into all
motion.
three? Okay, yes. Okay, good.
My motion was for council and board. I did not speak to committee.
That's what's on the screen is council and board. So I assumed we were just talking about those.
But the original one has a committees one section.
Oh. Give an example of a committee, please.
Nominating committee, personnel committee.
Okay, thank you.
And I do believe there's room to omit
David, don't we need to amend the committee or the amendment to include committees?
So what I would recommend that the easiest way to proceed, rather than try to compound all of them, is to consider them individually. So she has this proposal as an amendment for the church council. I think the easiest thing would be to discuss and debate it for the church council. And then she can make her amendment, the same thing if she would like to, for boards. And then you guys can debate whether to do boards. And then if you want to make an amendment on committees, you can make amendment on committees. But I think it would be a bit, it has created some confusion over which ones are affected or not affected. So I would recommend that you keep it to a single question, which is that very first part on church council first.
Okay. So Dan, we'll go back to that previous language, and then I'm going to recognize Mary Wendell next for discussion on this specific piece.
Just wanted to mention, and I think some other moderators will agree, that we have had to cancel meetings but because of snow. One year was particularly bad, and it just seemed to come in cycles where it was always following week. And that goes within 8 weeks without meeting for church council. So I find that a detriment, and I think this would be very helpful for that kind of circumstance. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce Blanchard. Always nice to hear from Bruce.
Thank you. I just want to go on opposition to any of the amendments based on the fact that we discussed this at great length at church council. And every time we came up with an amended word, we kept coming back to some sort of a problem with it that we didn't have with the original version. So I'm going to make my personal recommendation that we should stick with the original version and reject all amendments. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Rick and Kathy McInnes.
Yeah, my only question is that it says church council meetings may also be held virtually when deemed necessary. Are you including both in-person and virtual at the same time? That's my question.
Yeah, the intent is to read that we would hold them in person whenever possible, and members could join virtually to those in-person meetings if they needed to.
Okay.
But church council could decide to hold them virtually when they deem it necessary.
So I didn't know if we needed to say includes, it could be held both, but either way, I just wanted a clarification. Thank you.
Okay. Derek and Amy Kerr.
The one quick thought is that the phrase verified members, are we getting a little, I mean, we obviously want members of the church involved, but what if we need to have, we're working with the tri-faith and we want to have someone from one of the other faiths join us to talk about an opportunity to work together or something during that meeting? They're not a verified member. Would that exclude them from being able to participate in that meeting virtually?
We could change the wording to participants, but there's something that needs to be in there for verified members for voting.
I agree, the voting piece, but I would think that'd be covered somewhere elsewhere on who can vote in these boards, I think.
Should it say verified members will also be allowed to vote virtually for the process? And don't speak to who can attend, since that should always be.
Yeah, virtual voting could be a whole conversation its own. So
Yeah,
that's my thought.
Thank you. Let's go to Tom Skates. Tom, can you unmute?
Yeah. My original thought with this was to change or insert between verified and members, verified council members. But with the recent conversation, I'm not sure if that is what we need to do.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. John McAllister.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Do you have any input?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw a hand up. Jim Gilbert.
Yes, I'd like to second Bruce's suggestion that we go back to original language and that we end this discussion.
Are you calling the question on this piece?
Yes.
So we can vote on it? Okay.
Yes.
So the question's been called. So what we need to vote on here first, and David, you correct me when I screw this up. What we have to vote on here first is whether or not to accept this language as an amendment to the original change. Is that correct? Just for church council.
Well, technically, you need to vote on the ending discussion, the call to question,
I always forget that part.
which would require 2/3 vote to stop discussion on this amendment.
Yes.
On this amendment to the original language.
Okay. So we need a vote to stop discussion, to call the question. Can we put up a poll?
Cassandra, just use the last one. It says amendment, but I'll use that one for this vote.
Got it.
So we'll try to be clear on what you're voting on here. This vote is to call the question about this change that you see on here and in debate, and you would be a vote to stop discussion and take a second vote at some point about this amendment. So this is just to stop discussion, and we need a 2/3 vote.
And just a note, if you have your hand raised in the participant list and you are not on the phone, if you could lower your hand so that we can count the phone votes appropriately.
So if you vote yes, you are voting to stop discussion. If you vote no, you want to keep discussion going. Give everybody just another few seconds here. We're getting much quicker at it, I believe. So thanks to everyone for voting quickly. I'll help move this along. Okay, we're going to close it in a few seconds. All right, Dan, let's close the poll on the calling of the question. Okay, so we have, you want to give us the raw numbers, but we've approved to stop discussion on this amendment to it.
So it's 115 to yes, 7 no, and 3 abstain.
Okay, so we've voted to stop discussion. David, again, correct me when I'm wrong. We've decided to stop discussion, and we need to now vote on this amendment as it stands to the original bylaw change.
Correct.
Okay, so we need to put up another poll. And so now voting in the affirmative would be to accept the change as shown on E. A no vote would remove that and go back to the original language sent out to you.
Correct.
I'm getting better, David, every time.
Doing great, doing great.
All right, so let's put up a poll.
Dan, which, this is
Just
not.
use the last one again.
Okay, when I do that, it does give me an alert that says relaunching the poll will clear the existing results.
We've already recorded those
Yep,
numbers. So you're
we're good.
Perfect. Okay, here we
Thank you,
go.
Cassandra. Okay, so a yes would accept the version in E. A no would go back to the original language.
I like doing like this, rather than by hand.
You what?
Oops.
What's in red?
And if we could, I know we had a lot of discussion there, so a lot of people unmuted, but if we could have everybody mute your phones again, we'll try to cut down on the clutter and background noise. I appreciate it.
How do you unmute from the phone?
You were currently unmuted. To mute or unmute from the phone, you hit *6.
Okay.
And then if you are on your phone to vote, if you're voting yes, you hit *9. And that will show a raised hand.
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's close polling on that topic. So we have 55% saying they approve the amendment under portion E there, saying church council meetings will be held. I can't read it anymore, but anyway, we have a 55% approval. So David, do we need 2/3 on this as well? No, this is a straight up.
An amendment to the amendment requires only 50%. So that motion carries.
Okay.
So Dan, if you would delete what is D, the red highlight, and just leave what was E, that now substitutes in for what was previously sent to everybody.
Okay. And if you still have your hand up from voting, make sure you try to put that hand down. I know it's not always easy, especially if you're on a phone.
Didn't hear the raw numbers, and I wonder if they included the no's on the phone.
Oh, yeah, we could have Dan, what do you have there?
Sorry. I'm gonna have just 1 second. Let me pull that up.
There were 4 no's on the phone and 1 yes on the phone.
So that'll add to that.
So the yes motion was 64 on the poll plus 1 yes 65. From the phone.
So 65, yes.
And then the no's were 51 on the poll and 4 on the phone.
So it's 65 to 55.
And then 1 abstain.
And 1 abstain.
Correct.
Okay, so that amendment, that motion to make that change passes 65 to 55. So I think we show that fairly well then. Now we have to go back to the previous bylaw change, correct, David?
So what I would say is because we basically broke up her motion into 2 pieces, I think that you can now swing down to the next section, which is the board meeting, Dan. And she made and there was a second for the same change to be made to the board section.
So instead of reading board meetings may be held at the church by video conference or by telephone conference call, such meetings shall be conducted in such a way that all members participating can see and hear each other at the same time. Would what we are voting on, what we're going to discuss, and I believe we have a motion and a second, right, David?
Yeah, I think we're good accepting that from before.
So what we're going to,
simplicity.
okay. So now it would be to change that portion above that was approved by church council to read, board meetings will be held in person at the church whenever possible. Board meetings may also be held virtually when deemed necessary by the board. Verified members will also be allowed to join virtually per the process as supported by the rules of order. So that's what's on the table now. And so we get to have discussion again. Any discussion on this topic? And we'll try to, I don't know, we'll try to reserve it for boards at this point. Diane, any thoughts? Diane Poots?
Yes, just slow it on meeting, sorry. I would say that this is different because I think as a congregational church, we should let the congregation members that are on the board make the decision. So I am against this change to board meetings. If the group decides to do it, they should be able to meet virtually. If they decide to meet in person, they should be able to do that.
Isn't that how it's worded?
Well, depends on how
Both
you're.
kind of worded that way. So it's hard to tell. Go ahead, Diane. What do you think?
I don't think so because it says when deemed necessary. I think it should also be when deemed more appropriate to the meeting or as more convenient to the members of the board. I think those should be allowed without saying necessary. That's just my view on it.
Okay, thank you. Let's see who's next. Let's try Dean Ron Schmeirer. Sorry if I butchered that name.
Yeah, you're fine. I have to agree with Diane a little bit. I don't think that's that clear that people on a board would feel that they could ask to be on virtual because they happen to be out of town or something. And it also doesn't cover any committees outside of your board. So are we going to cover the committees as well, that we can do it in-house as well as virtual or a combination?
I think we'll move to the committee question next. Well, so that's a good point. I think, but I did hear what you said as well about the change itself. Thank you.
I don't think it's clear.
Okay. Mitzi Cardona.
I was just going to ask, would you be able to edit the wording to say when deemed appropriate by the board, like Diane said, and then just participants will be allowed to join virtually? That way it leaves it open to, like what Dia and Diane said, that way they can decide when to meet virtually, and if someone's out of town, it'll just be up to the board to accept that somebody's meeting virtually.
So okay. I have to ask, is that much different than what's above that? What are the distinctions that we're drawing between the original language and what we just said?
You could take out verified also.
Well, there's those changes are being made. David, there is a parliamentary question that has come in. Why does an amendment to an amendment require only a majority vote when the original amendment requires a 2/3 vote?
Because, well, under Robert's Rules of Order, what you're considering requires, what that consideration only requires a majority. Our bylaws require, so your option is to vote yes or no on that amendment that changes it, and then if you don't like it, you can vote no on the overall amendment. But the 2/3 vote is required under the bylaws for a change in the bylaws, but to change a word or series of words within the proposed is a simple majority of those who are participating. That's just how it works under Robert's Rules of Order.
Okay, and then a follow-up question to that is if this new language does not carry that 2/3 vote when we're doing the final vote for the board bylaw changes, can the original language that was proposed still have a motion to have a vote, or is that off of the table?
No, you would have rejected ultimately the amendment to the bylaws, and so no amendment would be made. You'd be left with the current language that's in the bylaws. Nothing that's been proposed. You'd need to go through the bylaw process, I think, again, if ultimately that's amended. The one other thing I would note here is that the changes that Dan's been typing in, that's just, I would consider that a motion, but there's not a second for that at this point. So you'd need to ask if there's a second to make the changes that were just talked through, and then you would have discussion on those proposed changes.
Okay. So let's have everybody put their hands down. We've got a few up. And then I'm going to ask for a second on the motion to make the changes to necessary and verified. So Derek and Amy Kerr have a second. So now, David, we're a proposal within a proposal within a proposal here. So we need to have discussion on the changes to the part for crossing out necessary and for crossing out verified members and just having participants. Participants will also be allowed to join virtually per the process as supported by the Rules of Order. So that's what we would be discussing next. Any discussion? Ryan Palmer.
I just want to support this process and the way that we're doing it. It might be painstaking that this is taking an extra 15 or 20 minutes, but this is what it's about. We're making decisions that are going to be with us for a year. And so I really appreciate the participation and the thought, and everyone's really trying to find common ground. We have money in the budget to do hybrid. We've heard from members who need access both in person and digital, and we can't ignore that. And so I think that at the highest level, important decisions need to be made in person if at all possible. And I love how we're putting this board. The board gets to decide. The council has to be there, but then the board, you guys get to decide what's good for you. And then as we get to committees, I think more of the same. It's like, geez, we don't really need to be in the hands of every little committee, but let's make sure that we're trying to have meetings in person and in virtually so that we can service all of our members. Thank you. Thank you, Russ.
Thank you. I don't see any other discussion, so I think we can move to voting on these changes, taking out necessary and verified members. So just, you can clarify my vote here, David, but it's just to make these few word changes to the amendment that is then going to be voted on separately. So it's just to make these two word changes, correct?
Yes.
So a vote, yeah.
This is Bonnie Buckland. I'm sorry to interrupt. Who seconded that motion? Derek Kerr moved. Who did the second?
No, Derek seconded. The motion was on the floor, I believe from Mitzi. Is that who made the original one?
No, we're talking now only about necessary and appropriate. Is that right?
Yes.
And members changing to participants. So that is a change to Mitzi's motion.
And I believe she made that motion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
She made a motion to change her own motion. So
okay.
She has the motion on the floor, and Derek
seconded. Thank you.
You're welcome. So let's see if we can put up a poll to vote yes would take into account those final changes that you saw. To vote no would be to go back to her original motion. Okay, we'll give you another few minutes here and we'll try to count any phone conversations. I think we are dropping a few participants here as the day goes on, so we do need to try to keep things moving along. I want to make sure we keep a quorum as we go. I don't know if we have to, but I'd sure like to have as many participants as possible. So let's close polling. And so those changes will become permanent. What are the raw numbers, Dan?
So that's 89 yes, 13 no, and 4 abstain.
Okay, so now, and again, David, correct me if I'm wrong, we can go ahead and make those, our vote now, or our discussion now is whether to accept part J over part I. Is that correct? We're
Yep.
still not voting on the bylaw change as a whole. We're voting, or we're discussing and voting on this topic, just boards. Does that make sense? Any discussion? Diane, I see your hand. Diane Poots? Sorry.
Yes, I would just say that I think the original wording was perfectly fine with this and leaves it up to the board to decide what they want to do, which is more in the line of congregational church, I believe, than what we have below.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to move us to a vote on whether to accept the motion to change part I to part J, if you can see that on your screen. So a yes vote would be to approve part J, and a no vote would be to stick with the language in part I. Please turn in your votes. Give you another few seconds here. I know it's probably harder for the people on phone, so
Yeah.
we'll give you just a minute. Okay, just a few more seconds. And we'll close the polling. And Dan, if you could tell us the results.
It is 57 yes, 45 no, 2 abstain.
That includes the phone.
Correct. I'm adding the phone.
Okay. You're getting really quick at that. Thank you. So now Article 10 there on boards has changed to Part J. That is the language as proposed for that section. Now we have to tackle the committee portion of the motion on the floor. I'll give him just a second here to cut and paste.
I do want to clarify. I think Mitzi said that she did not move
That's
that
correct.
this apply to committees. We may want to ask her if now that she knows it's a part of all of this, she still wants it to, and then whether there's a second for that.
So Mitzi, I guess it's up to you. Do you want to change this language at all as part of your original motion? Or is this to remain unchanged? Well, I shouldn't say to remain as written, based on your previous motion. We were a little unclear.
This was not part of my original motion.
Okay, very good. So I believe we're back to discussing, correct me if I'm wrong here, we're back to discussing the amendment to the bylaw as a whole with the changes approved.
Correct.
So we have to take it kind of all or none here. And so what I'd like to do is take one last look at it here before we have discussion. Okay. So the committee,
Dan, as it currently stands, if you go up to that, you can delete that D because it's gone. Everybody's voted to get rid of it. You can go to the next page and delete I. And then we currently have this section as was presented to everybody, and you've got some hands up.
Yep. So if you can go back up one, just to clarify, go up to boards. Can we also take out necessary? Because it
Okay,
was,
I'll do that.
okay. I'll give him just a second to do that. Okay, so this is what the current topic is, the changes made to the entire bylaw with regard to part D. I don't know, it'll stay I, correct, I believe.
Yeah, it stays I and D.
So we're now looking at this as a whole.
Plus this.
Yep, so those three pieces as a whole, just so everybody's clear. And so I have two hands up. Let's listen to Ryan Palmer.
Yeah, thanks, Russ. I'd like to just make a motion to amend the committee section to copy the same verbiage from the board section. Thank you.
I'm sorry, could you say that again, Ryan, just for clarity?
Sure. I just make a motion to copy the verbiage from the board section to the committee section. Thank you.
So
Dan, go start with generally. There you go, and just cut that all out. Or that just
highlight
strike through the whole thing so that that's what he's proposing be deleted. And then is there a second?
And then we also need to change board to committee, maybe in two places still. So if we could have everybody put your hands down. So I know you weren't just gonna have discussion for a second, and I'll need a second. Derek and Amy Kerr is seconding Ryan Palmer's motion to make a change to this section, section 11. Now, I think that's fairly clear, David, that now our discussion is about just this section.
Correct.
Of the entire piece. So any discussion? Ryan Palmer put his hand up. Ryan, I think you're still on mute. Or maybe you didn't mean to raise it.
Thanks again, Russ. I meant to say copy the verbiage, but substitute the word committee where it says board. So it would still be up to the committee to decide. Committee meetings may also be held virtually when deemed appropriate by the committee. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks for the clarification. Trish Hoffman-Ahrens, let's
Yeah,
hear from
just
you.
quickly, I need a clarification. When we're talking about committees here in Article 11, are we talking about standing committee versus ad hoc committees? Or all committees?
I believe these are standing committees.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. My concern is that we have committees that are participate by members, people who are not members of the church. So I just want to make sure that we're not talking about those committees.
Which committees would those be? Can you give us some examples?
The ad hoc ones, the non-ad hoc ones are personnel committee,
right?
Budget committee and nominee committee.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay.
So Russ, sorry to interrupt. I would note that this is essentially a preamble paragraph to the committee section. It's section 1 general. And so it would apply to all committees of the church
Okay.
that are set up under that article.
So that would include ad hoc committees, correct?
Well, ad hoc committees are the ones that are created under section 4. So I would say yes.
Okay. Thank you. It's hard sometimes when you pull a snippet out to understand just what you're doing. So I would hate to make a change that we have to unmake.
I'm hoping tomorrow morning we don't have any of those.
Yeah. Trish, was that all you had, Trish? Does that explain it? Okay. Robin Hubbard.
Well, I had a question too. It says participants will also be allowed to join virtually for the process as supported by the rules of order. What does that mean? Which rule are we talking about? Robert's Rules of Order? Are we getting away from the bylaws here?
It'd be
Mitzi?
It would be whatever rules of order that committee operates under.
Yep.
By the committee's rules of order?
Yes.
Do the
Okay.
committees have rules of order?
Point of information, Russ, I believe that the bylaws state, this is Ryan Palmer again, I believe the bylaws state that unless otherwise noted, Robert's Rules of Order is the rules of order that the meetings are supposed to be conducted under.
Correct. That's Article 12.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion, clarifications? If not, let's put up a poll to accept or reject this change to the change, as I call it. I know that's not the right way, David, but this bottom language here, stating committee meetings will be held in person. So we'll vote to accept that or reject it, depending on our vote. We'll give the people on the phone a minute here to, maybe not a full minute, but a few more seconds to register their vote. And I do apologize, everyone, for this taking so long. They are uncommon times. I appreciate your patience. Okay, let's close the poll. And so this portion is approved to go into the overall. This wording is approved to go into the overall. Dan, can you tell us the numbers?
It is 66 yes, 28 no, 2 abstain.
Okay. Okay, so we are back to the bylaw change in general, the 3 sections being amended as such by previous motions. Any further discussion on the piece as a whole? Al Cardona. Or maybe you just had your hand up, I can't tell.
Sorry, I didn't unmute myself. I make a motion to change the council meeting section to match the one for the board meeting section, where we drop necessary as appropriate and verified members as, to participants.
Dan, could you go back to the church council section? So there's a motion to basically change the church council to fit similarly to what we voted on for the board and committees, to remove necessary and take out verified members and switch to participants. I have that right?
That's correct.
So if
This is
everyone
Ryan.
could,
I'll second.
okay, thanks, Ryan. Moving and seconded to make that change to the change again. So any discussion on this topic? Al, your hand's still up. Did you want to say anything, or are we good to vote? Okay, we're good to vote. So what we're voting on this time is just the church council paragraph D, making changes. If you like the changes we just showed on screen that are similar to the boards and committees. So please vote now. We'll give everyone just another few seconds. Okay, let's close the polling and get our results, Dan.
87 yes, 10 no, 1 abstain.
Okay, so that motion passes. Now we're back to the broader topic of all of these changes for council, boards, and committees as we have amended them through this process. Any discussion? I see John McAllister.
I move the entire amendment.
I'm sorry, say that again, John.
I move the entire amendment as amended.
Okay. Do we need a motion for that, David?
You don't. It's effectively, he's calling the question.
Okay.
And so if there's no objection, you can move to it.
Okay.
To consideration of it.
Okay. Do we need? I see. We still have some discussion here. So then, is that?
No, I'm seconding.
Oh, okay. So, David, are we now voting to stop discussion, or are we just voting? I mean,
Is there
nobody else
anybody
has.
left? Is there anybody left in the discussion queue?
No.
Then
No.
you can move to the vote.
Okay, so let's vote on the entire bylaw change as amended. I think we can vote. Thank you. Give everybody just another minute or a few seconds here. I always say minute, but I don't mean it. Okay, let's close polling on that.
88 yes, and 10 no, and 0 abstain.
Okay, so the bylaws will be changed based on what we have on the screen here. Motion carries, I guess. It's a long drawn out one, but we've got a change to the bylaws, which is good. I think it would be awkward if we didn't have that in our bylaws and had to go through at least part of another year without something that addresses it. So we'll try to get that to each board chair so they understand kind of how a board or a committee can meet. Okay, let's see if I can figure out where we are here. I think we have fourth and last bylaw change. Regards updating our mission statement in our bylaws. We've actually been saying open and affirming for many years, but in an oversight, the mission statement as printed in the bylaws was not updated when the congregation added the words open and affirming to Countryside's mission statement. The congregation has recited the mission statement for those words for, like I said, for a number of years, but we need to correct bylaws to reflect what we've been saying, if that makes sense. So these changes to the bylaws have been approved by church council and are they have recommended this to the congregation. So if we could get a motion, Mary Mintz, is that a motion? I want to make sure You had a hand up there. Is that your motion?
No, I have an amendment.
Okay, we can't amend something without a motion yet, right, David? So we have to wait to get a motion on the board first, and then we can vote to amend it, I believe. David, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, you need a motion and a second, and then you can have.
Okay, so Bruce Blanchard is made a motion.
So move.
Thank you, Bruce. And if you can put your hands down and give me a second. I'll take Jim Farrow.
I second it.
Thank you. So now we have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? Mary Mites.
Thank you, Russ. So this mission statement is a mission statement, not a prayer. And so I move that we take the word amen off because it is not in the mission statement that we read at church. And I've been involved with this mission statement since the very beginning. I absolutely support adding open and affirming, but I would like to take the word amen off of it because it is not a prayer. And we don't, when you see it printed at church, it doesn't have amen at the end.
Okay, so for the mission statement in the bylaws, you're making a motion, and I want to clarify this. You're making a motion to strike the word amen from the end. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, do I have a second? Jim Farho again. We'll take Jim.
Yep, I accept that amendment.
Okay. So now we need to have discussion on striking amen from the mission statement amendment that we have here. So any discussion on the amen portion of that? Deb McAllister. We'll have to unmute you, Deb. Oh, I lost her hand. Let's go with Mike Bonner.
All the question.
Okay. Thank you. So now, David, you're gonna have to help me out here. Do we have to vote to stop discussion?
Yeah, so since we haven't really had any meaningful discussion, usually I would consider that a motion to call the question out of order at this point. So if you've got people in the queue, I think you don't need to vote on it. You only have to vote on it if there's been at least some meaningful discussion. We haven't had any yet on that motion.
Okay. So I do still see Jan Brown with her hand up. Jan.
I think Mary has an excellent point. We haven't been using the word amen in church, and it is not a prayer. It does seem to be superfluous, so I would agree with her.
Okay. Vince and Cynthia Lindenmeyer. Any other thoughts?
Yes, this is Vince. I don't have the slide up anymore. I can't find it, but
I'll pull it up.
The peace and justice at the end. I hate to go back to propose peace, equality, and justice based on this past year of racial inequality and the numerous years of the woman and trying to equal the gender gap. So I believe equality stems throughout economic inequality, racial inequality, and gender inequality. So when I read promote peace and justice, I would propose peace, equality, and justice in our conflicted world. That is all.
Vince, I'm going to have you come back to that probably because we have to just limit this to the amen portion till I get that voted on. So keep what Vince said in mind, but we'll come back to the amen piece for a minute. Hold on, I lost my hands up piece here. Hold on, there we go. Any other discussion on amen? Then seeing none, let's vote to strike. A vote in the affirmative is to strike amen from the end of the mission statement. A vote no would be to keep amen in there. We'll try to move through this one fairly quickly. All right. That should have given people enough time to vote. Let's close the poll. Raw numbers, Dan?
89 yes, 2 no, 2 abstain.
Okay, so amen is stricken. Now, David, correct me if I'm wrong, we move back to, we'll strike that out, Dan, if you can. I know you're on a slideshow.
Okay, I'll
But
pull it back
the
out.
question now is do we approve?
So
the-
Russ,
yeah.
you've got, we basically ruled Vince out of order.
We did, yeah.
And so you can go back to recognizing his motion to, I think, add the word equality and see if there's a second for that, and then
Okay.
without doing it all formal.
Okay.
Second, McAllister.
John McAllister seconded the motion to, we'll put it back up here in a second, but it's basically to add equality to the statement. Give him just a minute. So
Where does the equality go if we're doing it?
Yeah, Vince, where? You want to put it back up for just a second, Dan, and we'll, that way he can see where he wants to put it.
Yeah, I can share. Just one second. Thought I.
So amen is going.
Peace, equality, and justice.
Correct.
And since then, since we kind of, said it was in the wrong spot there, can you reiterate what you said before, just so I get your.
Yes, in lieu of, well, the rationale behind it.
Sure.
In context of the past year of racial inequality, I would like to propose, and also the numerous years of the woman, which we haven't closed the gap of the gender gap. And then finally, economic inequality. I believe peace and justice does not serve that notice enough. So I would like to add peace, equality, and justice. And I'm not sure if you use the Oxford comma or not.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to add equality to the mission statement. Again, we're not then voting on the mission statement holistic change with the open and affirming part. We would just now be discussing the equality, the addition of equality into the statement. And let me bring up my participants again. Any discussion there? Tracy Halverson? Did you have anything to say, Tracy?
Yeah, just briefly, I wholeheartedly support Vince's proposed amendment and Oxford comma and all.
Okay, thank you. Mary Wendell?
To close discussion and move to accept the latest amendment of equality.
Okay, so I do have some other hands up here. David, are we okay to call the question then?
I think you can hear from a couple more people.
Okay. Mike Bonner, any thoughts?
Thanks, Russ. I support the wording change. However, I believe that that is more of a change in the mission statement that requires a different process, whereas this original this original bylaw vote is just about correcting the mission statement that had been approved through that process to match the way it's presented in the bylaws. So to me, while I love it and support it, I think we're out of order in terms of amending the mission statement.
Good point. I wasn't part of writing this mission statement, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't done from scratch in a meeting like this. Other thoughts? Thank you, Mike. Let's go with Monty Lindsay.
I'd just like to reiterate what Mike Bonner just said. I think that we have a process for amending the bylaws. And I want to reiterate that I wholly support the change. It's just, are we in the right process?
Matter of channels. Okay, thank you, Monty. Mary Mintz.
Hi, Russ. I'll give some history on this. The mission statement was developed in several community meetings with over 120 people at each meeting. We did flip charts, we did wordsmithing, and we came up with this mission statement. I don't know that there was ever identified a process to revise it, but that's how it was done. Then it went to church council or the church. Everybody voted for it, but it was a definite congregational process.
Okay. I'm going to go back, let's see, to Jim Gilbert, and then we'll try to close it out here.
I just wanted to speak to the question that Mike brought up. Is this the correct process? We are amending bylaws. And so this falls into that. I think that falls into the process. So I don't think we're out of line at all. I think we need to go ahead, and I'll call the question.
Okay. So, David, from a call to question standpoint, do we need to vote on that at all? Or can we just move forward with voting whether to accept equality or not?
It appears you don't have any more questions in the queue. Is that correct?
Right.
Then I think you can vote on the question of equality.
Okay. So this vote will be whether or not to add equality to the list. I hear some people, they're for that, but not for this part of the process. And so your vote will have to fit into one of two categories though. We have a vote, if we could put up a poll to add equality or not.
Oh, shit.
There's a few more votes coming in. We'll give them just a second. Okay, let's close polling on that, Dan. Okay.
So 75 yes, 16 no, 2 abstain.
Okay, thank you. So now we're back to this total change with open and affirming and equality, amen deleted. I think if there's any discussion to be had on that, we can entertain it now. If not, we can vote. So seeing none, I'm going to say we vote on this change as a whole. Yes or no? Give everybody just another few minutes here. Okay, let's close the polling, Dan. See where we're at. All right. You want to give us raw numbers?
81 yes, 5 no, 3 abstain.
Motion carries to change that last bylaw. So I think we're done with bylaws for now. Yay. We are going to move forward to presentation of the 2021 operating budget from Dan Loven-Crum and Diane Poots.
Yes, thank you. I will make this brief, but with a couple of things to note is that this had a lot of thought and discussion from the budget committee and went through the trustees and the church council. So there has been a lot of thought put into this. I know it's getting late, so I will be brief, but any questions that you would have, I will be happy to, you can contact me, phone call or email, and I'll speak you through the whole budget in more detail if you would like that at a later time. Do you want to pull up the first screen, Dan? That has numbers. We have just show on here the basics of the 2020 budget and actual. Both revenue and expenses were lower than anticipated, mainly, of course, due to COVID. Yeah, you're not sharing the screen, Dan.
I know, I'm trying to get out of this loop I'm in, and
Okay.
just give me a second.
Yeah, so both were lower. We feel very fortunate as the trustees that despite COVID, it didn't decrease revenues more than it did. We had a decrease, but it was far better than we would have anticipated in March of last year. Overall, we ended the year of 2020 18,000 in the hole, which with everything considered, we feel pretty good about that. You'll see that our budget for 2021, we usually try to present a balanced budget, but with everything that's happening in the world, we show $130,000 shortfall approximately. And I will get into the details a little more as we go. And what I will show at the end is the trustees have been good stewards over the past several years, and we have a good amount of reserves that can cover this kind of shortfall. And really, that's what reserves are for, is to help us in a situation such as that that is occurring right now with COVID and everything. If you go to the next one, Dan, we have the revenue projections. You'll see 2020 budget and actual. Our proposed 2021 budget is based on the stewardship campaign that we just went through. And it does show less, about 130,000 less, 135,000 less than what we had for the 2020 budget, but just a bit below what we had 2020 actual. So we feel pretty good about that. A couple of things to note are right now, we don't have any use of realized gains for the 2021 budget, whereas last year we budgeted 188,000 and only used 115. So that came out of our reserves already, and that was voted on by the budget committee and approved by the congregation at the annual meeting last year. We used less than we expected, still had a very close to even budget. And as I pointed out, we do not currently have budgeted to use any of the reserves for the coming year. You will see on here our PPP loan, Payment Protection Program loan, will be turned into a grant. Either it already has in January or will in February. It will show up in our 2021 budget. And that was what allowed us to keep staff on, and you paid them despite the fact that we weren't operating under normal conditions. You want to go to the expenses? The next slide shows expenses. And what we did was keep expenses budgeted at where they were budgeted for 2020. As I pointed out on the first slide, we did not use all of the budgeted funds, mainly due to the fact that we weren't meeting in person and we didn't have all the expenses of programming that we would have. So what we have is kept at, this will be more than we spent 2020 actual, and may or may not happen depending on when we get to open up the church and how much programming we get to do in 2021. But right now we kept it even. There's just a very slight increase you'll see, and that was because of additional money that we are getting from the church foundation that we added in, because that was money that was given to us. So we added that into the 2021 budget. Otherwise we held it completely flat. The next slide shows what we wanted to point out, and I mentioned a few minutes ago, our countryside reserves. As you'll see, just 5 years ago in 2015, 5 to 6 years ago, we didn't even have a 3-month operating reserve. We were close to it, but not quite. The blue that you'll see is the operating reserve that we have had. This will be our, we have had it for the last 5 years. So 6 years ago, we didn't. 5 years, we've had an operating reserve of 3 months of our operating budget is in our investment portfolio that we can use should we ever need it. As you'll see, in addition, the green part shows how our investments have grown through the great stewardship of all the trustees we've had over these past several years, not to mention some great leadership from Dan Loven-Crum to keep our reserves growing so that we have money available for situations such as we're in when we need it. So my overall picture for 2021 is that we are showing a negative budget because we're not taking in as much as we will spend, but by 130,000, but that's what we have the reserves for. So we have money to take care of that because of the great stewardship of all the trustees that we've had over the past several years. So we're in I feel a very good position and really the best position that we can be in the current environment and current situation with COVID. So I would move that the people here in the annual meeting would approve this budget as has been approved by the Board of Trustees, the Budget Committee, then the Board of Trustees and the Church Council, that we move forward with this. Of course, as always, our boards and our staff will work to keep expenses minimized. So we may not fully realize the $130,000 shortfall as we hold expenses to the best we can, but we wanted as a group to allow for all the programming that we possibly can for the coming year, should we be able to do it. So I move that we approve the budget as presented.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Do we have a second? Trish Hoffman-Ahrens has a second up.
Yes.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve the budget as it stands. As Diane said, if you have specific questions, let's reach out to her directly to try to create some brevity here, but any discussion. So I have Ryan Palmer.
Thanks again, Russ, and thanks so much to everybody who tried to put these together. I realize we're really kind of shooting in the dark. We don't know what's ahead of us, and that so far this last year was really not good for revenue. And I just wanted to. I know that we don't really have any. There's no way to really change this budget at this time. I just wanted to point out that, and maybe we can get some clarity as to where the money's going for outreach, because it's $58,000 and our total budget for life ministry is only $3,400, and then our total budget for deacons is only $6,600, and then youth ministry is only $22,000. So outreach is actually double what we're doing in youth and like 10 times what we're doing to the life ministry and deacons. And so I just was thinking that maybe there's time for an explanation as to where all that $58,000 is earmarked for.
Yeah.
And I also wondered what are our projected reserves at the end of 2021 look like? That graph looks great, but after we spend that, and if we don't get, the income that we're hoping for, where do we end up with our reserves for this following year? And I'll just wait in silence. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I'll start with your question first about the outreach. And I served on the board of outreach just a bit ago and know firsthand the answer to this. The vast majority of that, over 50,000, is money that we pay to the conference, and that is as our part of being part of the UCC conference, which is Iowa, South Dakota, and Nebraska, for all of the things that they do, and as support for all of their ministries. And it is very, very important to them to have that money in order to be able to continue to support us. So that is paid a certain amount per member. So it's over 50,000 and it's been that way for many years. So the part that the Board of Christian Outreach actually gets to use is closer to 7,000, I believe. Dan, do you know?
It's whatever's over the 50,000. So it's 58, it's 8,000 something.
8,000 something now. So that's more in line with the other expenses for boards, as you pointed out. So that's the reason that's so different. The other one is for reserves. If we do this $130,000 budget and use all of the expenses that we have budgeted, we would take that 131,000 out of reserves. So it would go down that much. However, the rest of it depends on how our investments do. They've gone up without putting much extra in them the past several years because of the way that our investments have been increasing in market value. So I would assume it would decrease less than the 130,000, probably significantly less, depending on how the stock market and our individual portfolio fares in that.
Okay. Thank you, Diane. Ann Burdette, anything else?
Just one thing. The $58,000 was created back in the 1980s. I don't remember which year, but I was on council at the time. And that is our major contribution to our national church. And as Diane explained, it has gone down to 50,000. Diane and Dan both explained. It's gone down to 50,000 since then. Everybody else's expenses have gone up and we have reduced our contribution. So I don't see how we can reduce it any further.
Okay, thank you, Ann. I don't see any other discussion, so let's vote on whether or not to approve the budget as shown. We put up a poll. Okay, thank you, Dan. So if everybody could vote. Don't forget to click submit after you click the little button. We'll give a few people just another few minutes. Thanks, Diane and trustees in general for putting that together for us. I know it's been a weird year, so thank you for getting all that out and explained. It was very nice. Okay, let's close polling.
It is 80 yes, 1 no, and 2 abstain.
Okay, thank you. So that's approved. We have just a few more topics here, so if you guys could hang with us, we're getting to the good part, but we have one more kind of resolution, I guess. We have to get some resolution on the fact that our bylaws up until today hadn't really accounted for virtual meetings, and now they do. But we put together some language to ratify what we've done all year in the time of pandemic. So I'm gonna read this to you because it's probably written by David. It's got some whereases and some wherefores in it, so bear with me here. Whereas in March 2020, the world was affected by the COVID pandemic. The results of the pandemic, the local, state, federal governments declared the existence of an emergency and adopted directed health measures, which affected the ability of church to operate in person. And whereas the church continued to operate through the use of virtual and other remote meetings, now wherefore be it resolved that the actions taken by the church trustees, council, boards, committees, moderators, and staff as directed during and as a result of those virtual and or remote meetings are hereby ratified. So basically it's a movement. We need a motion to ratify all of the things that we did until we could get the last bylaw approved to make virtual meetings a possibility. So Mary Wendell, I think you're moving that, correct?
I
And
move to ratify the resolution.
thank you, Mary. And Bruce Blanchard, is that a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on that topic? Steph, did you have your hand up for a discussion?
Nope, just seconding the motion.
Okay, thank you. So if there's no further discussion, let's put up a poll to ratify what we've been doing. We'll give people just a moment to vote here since they're still on the phone. And we are getting close here, guys, so hang with us. I promise we'll have restroom breaks as soon as we can. So let's close the poll.
86 yes, 0 no's, 1 abstain.
Thank you. So that is motion carries. And then I think we have a word from Dan. Is that correct?
So first, I'd like to recognize Cassandra, who's from Temple Israel, who helped us with all the polling. Now that we're done polling for the most part, we can let her take off for the day. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's see here. Next one is let's move agenda. Recognition of retiring leaders. So if anybody here is going off a board, why don't you raise your hand? And I've got them listed here as to all the people that are going off a board. And just put your hands together and say thank you for all you that helped us this last year. It was a weird year, but you've given this meant that you're coming off of 3 years of being on a board, and much appreciated having you part of that. So I just want to say a big thank you. It's everybody that makes this church go round. So having you on these boards and participating over the last 3 years is amazing, that the commitments we have. So thank you. Then I'd like to say a specific thank you to Russ. And why is it not changing? There it is. Thank you to Russ Schertz for his role as moderator this past year. We appreciate your efforts and your ability to, I always say, as each moderator comes in with strengths and skills that they bring to the role, and I always appreciate your ability to, in a meeting, sum up things and help us come to a conclusion, and then all the leadership that you gave for this last year. And we're not doing this in person, but you'll need to stop by the church, and there's a bell that's here waiting for you. It's got your name on it. So come in and stop by and pick your commemorative bell that you can ring. Every time you hear it ringing in the wind, you'll be thinking of us. And so very much appreciate it, Russ.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you to all of you. That's great. It was definitely a group effort, staff and other moderators and personnel, just amazing. And Dan, of course, thank you. You're our glue that holds the group together, and I sure appreciate you. It couldn't have possibly been done without you. So thank you.
So the next thing on our agenda is my computer must be really slow because it doesn't want to change slides. But our next agenda item is installation of the new church officers and board members. And so I just wanted to acknowledge the people that are on this sheet. You saw them named in the video. The nominating committee pulled them together. And I'm going to do something here where I'm going to stop sharing this. And if you are coming on and you're still online, put up your, raise your hand. And so everybody should be able to see, if you go to gallery move, you should be able to see people on your screen. And I want you to think of these people. It's actually, they should all be on the front screen. So I want you to just, everybody, we're going to say a prayer and welcome them to our ministry at Countryside. So if normally we reach our hands out to it, so we'll do it virtually. So if everybody could just put your hand out, and we'll say a prayer here. So God, Creator, Heavenly Father, we thank you for these people that have committed to being part of the leadership of Countryside. We ask that your spirit would guide them as they bring their thoughts, experiences, and skills to each of these boards. May their presence be a ministry, and may that ministry come together to the greater ministry of Countryside. We thank you for these commitments that have been made to participate in the life of the church. Amen. I'll skip back to the last couple. We got 3 actual agenda items left, and one of them is we have a new moderator. Tracy Halverson is our new moderator, and we'll ask her to say a few looking forward words. And then we're going to end with Rebecca with a benediction, and we'll adjourn from there.
Thank you, Dan. I want to say a special thank you also to Russ for these years of leadership together through working with trustees and moderators and personnel and budget committee and all of the things that we've served on together over the years. I'm just very, very grateful for your leadership and your friendship and your leadership through extraordinary and amazing times. I'm going to keep this really brief. I think it's extraordinary every year at this annual meeting to see our church, our community church, our congregational church in action. It's just stunning and heartwarming and such an honor to be on this leadership team and to be with each of you. And as we move together, you know, in this motions and acceptance and voting and feel this spiritual connection to all of us. I know that we'd all rather be in a room together, looking in each other's eyes and speaking together personally. But this is about as good as it gets in a pandemic where it's like seriously 8 below outside today. So I'm really grateful for all of you who have hung in there through all of this. As you know, when Eric's last day occurred December 1st and Chris's last day occurred January 1st, there was a group, a subset of personnel that was put together, the Transition Leadership Committee. And that small group has been working diligently, actually since Eric first approached us in September and submitted his resignation. But we have been working toward reading through profiles and all of the applicants that we've had for both postings. And we are now in the interview process. We're very excited that and feeling very, very confident that this spring we will have 2 new leaders to bring to Countryside who will be with us during this interim period. And at that point, this transition leadership team will go away and a new group of leaders will rise, and that will be the search committee itself. So we're terribly excited to let you know that we are in the interview process and that we are moving ever closer to bringing in 2 new leaders under the transition leadership, collaborative leadership model that we've developed. And we can't wait to share that news with you. In that light, I know that, you know, each of you, we've received so many messages from so many of you, and we're very, very grateful for those notes of support and messages of support and encouragement and love and virtual hugs and all of the things that we've experienced as the leadership team and the leadership of all the boards here at Countryside. And we have felt so loved by you and encouraged by you in this very extraordinary and difficult time to not only be a member of Countryside, but also to be a leader. And this congregational process of all of us participating and all of us joining together to lead Countryside. We are the leaders of Countryside. Each one of us, every face you see on the screen in front of you, we are all the leaders of Countryside, and I'm very grateful for that. On a practical note, I discovered this week that I'm not actually listed in the church directory. So my husband's name is Greg Olson, and I'm simply listed as Tracy under his listing. I think that'll probably be corrected pretty quickly. But it's Tracy Halverson, like hallway, not Halverson, that'd be Swedish, and that's not me, I'm a Norwegian. So it's Halverson. And I would guess that this week I'll probably be listed in the church directory. But until that time, you can look under Olsen, O-L-S-E-N, that's my husband, Greg. And I'm simply listed as Tracy there, but my contact information is all correct. And I want you to know, as we go through all of this, if you have questions, certainly talk to those other people that you serve with, that you are connected to through Countryside. But if you seriously have a question or a comment or want conversation, call me, email me, text me, get your answers from the source. And I know that Diane Poots, as the incoming vice moderator-elect, and Aubrey Fitzke as the vice moderator this year, feel the same way. Our contact information is there for a reason. We encourage you to go to the source for your information. We love being a congregational church, and I'm very, very honored and blessed to be a part of the leadership team this year. And I'm very grateful. On another note, happy Valentine's Day, as we all share the love of God with each other. Thank you.
Rebecca Morello.
I'm going to invite everyone to pull their minds and hearts and settle into a quiet space and let yourself feel the connection to the Spirit. Spirit of the living God, who moves through and in this world, thank you. Thank you for this day, for the ingenuity and resourcefulness that allowed us to safely gather in a way to protect one another, to recommit to one another and to our faith community. May we carry these commitments with us as we strive to live most fully into who you know us to be. Amen.
There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, Dan, and everyone for all your hard work.
Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
You're gonna be
Bye,
great.
everyone.
Don't we get to have breakout rooms and stand around and drink coffee together?
Bye-bye.
Next time, donut holes for all.
Oh, yeah.
That's on the back. That's on the back to everyone.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Bye.
Dan, it's Bonnie.
The only thing that I know I missed was the language having to do with El Cardona's motion regarding the change in wording to the church council section. So maybe sometime this week, when you're back at the office, we can catch up with that and I can figure out what I need to have in the minutes.
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
Oh, the only place where I know I have a hole in the minutes is when we were going through that long section of bylaw changes. Right at the end, El Cardona made a motion regarding a change to the church council section to kind of be in line with what we'd been voting on prior to that. Ryan Palmer seconded it. It was the one that had a vote of 87 yeses, 10 noes. I don't have wording for that for the minutes. So sometime in the next week, let's catch up with each other and we'll figure out what I need to put in here.
Okay, so you're talking specifically the bylaw change that where he recommended that the church council line be matched to match the wording of the boards and the committees.
Oh, yeah.
So that was his motion was that we match the wording that we just voted on and approved in boards and committees and applied that to the church council.
Got it. Okay, that's it. I
Okay.
think that's the only hole.
Dan, do you need anything else from me?
I don't think so. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thanks, Dan and Stacy for the wonderful job that you have done. What is the last name of Cassandra?
Cassandra, well, she got married, and so I keep getting messed up on her.
I think the screen said Weisenberger.
Yes, so I don't know if her original name was Hicks, Hicks. And I don't know if she does an abbreviated one or if she, let me see her. She goes by Cassandra Hicks Weisenberger.
Can you spell Weisenberger?
Weisen Burger, Burger.
And Hicks is Hicks.
Yep. No hyphens on hers. It's just spaces.
Got it. Thank you.
All right,
and all of you get some rest.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Jalapeno beer.
Tracy, you're gonna have to blame the Baptists on because our database is a Baptist database and they default to the guy no matter what. It is the most frustrating thing.
So get this. So I'm looking up stuff in the directory, this, making calls, trying to, recruit people for TLC, all that kind of stuff. I'm going through and I'm looking and I see Greg's listing and it doesn't say Tracy Halverson. It says Greg and Tracy Olson. And I'm like, okay, well, that's part of where the mistakes probably come from. So then I go, well, I wonder how it's listed under my name. If it's Tracy Halverson and that just says Tracy and Greg Halverson. So I go to the H's and there's Andrew and Emma and there's nobody else. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not in the directory. Oh my God. I laughed and laughed. I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So I figured if I didn't mention it, people would go to the directory when they want to contact me and go, oh, she's flying under the radar. She's not even in the damn directory. It was very funny.
And so what we have to do workarounds. So we'll definitely do a workaround on.
Yeah.
On this would be just because you're moderator.
Oh gosh, I laughed and laughed because I thought, well, I don't want to give people the wrong impression that they think I'm hiding from them. That's why I said use the contact. It's right. And the Halverson thing rather than Halverson, Yeah.
So can I what I'm going to do with you just because of the moderatorship,
Yeah.
I'm gonna make you the primary adult on your account. That way if there by chance we pull something and it mistakenly defaults to the male, it will automatically put you as the primary so that we don't lose you.
That's Greg Olson and Tracy Halverson.
Yeah, so we keep,
That's fine.
yeah, that's the only thing I don't like about this system is it's like the darn Baptists and thinking that the male is the head of the home no matter what.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, it's going to take us a long time to get rid of the patriarchy, I'm afraid, I mean, it's just kind of one of those things that's baked in, right? And it wasn't anything other than funny to me this week that I realized I wasn't in the directory.
Oh, I've had so many, everyone, it comes up too often. It's too funny. It's just like,
it's just so funny. Say Tracy Halverson and Greg Olson. It says Tracy and Greg Olson, which there is no Tracy Olson, right? So I was like, holy schmoly.
what was the other person that gets that a lot until we kept working around it was Joyce Davis when she got married.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was like, why is it, and no matter how you pull it, it pulls differently how you do so we've been working very hard on it, but it's a complicated mess. Well, welcome aboard.
Thank you. I really think it's going to be an extraordinary year. I think that what God has ahead of us this year is really going to be something none of us can see coming right now. I think it's going to be amazing and remarkable. I just feel it in my bones. I'm so excited, and I know that there are a lot of people praying for us, and I feel that too. I'm excited about where we're going this year. Really excited about it. So, yay. Yay. So, I'll see you tomorrow at worship team, and then at TLC afterwards. Oh, hey, I see live on my screen.
Oh, let me kill that. Thank you.